Honorable members, I call on the member for Michael to lead us in the throne of grace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, we lift our eyes to the hill. From whence cometh our help? Our help cometh from you, which made the heavens and the earth. You will not suffer our feet to be moved. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us here on this morning as we seek to do the business of the people who have elected us. We ask now for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We ask that you be our guide, our direction. We ask as we deliberate in here today, Lord, that your presence will ever be present. We ask now that you continue to give us good success. We ask that you continue to prosper us as a people according to your will. And now, Father, we thank you for waking us up this morning. All of us are clothed in our right mind, and for this we give you thanks. In the mighty name of Jesus we pray, and you have taught us to say, Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
give us this day
Our daily bread.
and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Honorable members, we are at second reading and committal of our midterm budget, the appropriations bill. I now call on the member who had reserved the floor or recognize the chair, the member for Bamboo Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had stood on Wednesday to reserve the time for the member for Elizabeth. But before I take my seat, Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to inform both the Parliament and the nation that the Prime Minister, for those who do not know, will not be here for the remainder of the debate this week. As some of us know, the nation now knows the Prime Minister will be at the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Bridgetown, Barbados. And so this debate, Mr. Speaker, we had intended to have this debate concluded on Wednesday with the Prime Minister speaking Wednesday morning, but we will have to extend the debate until Monday. But we will not have any more members debating beyond Wednesday. So we will close our portion of the debate on Wednesday. We'll come back on Monday morning where the Prime Minister will wrap up, and then we'll go into Committee of the Whole. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I will take my seat, and as I reserve the time for the member for Elizabeth.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise on behalf of the wonderful people of the great constituency of Elizabeth to present my contribution. These people of Elizabeth have been strong supporters. They have afforded me the privilege to serve. And this privilege, particularly in these challenging times, reminds me of perhaps the greatest politician that has served in challenging times. I speak of no other than Winston Churchill, who would have said, and I quote, "There comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, when he seizes it, will fulfill his mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. And in that moment, he will find greatness. It is his finest hour." I hope that the people of Elizabeth will believe that I have lived up to their expectations. And today, I will outline, Mr. Speaker, the achievements for the Ministry of Health, the Department of Public Health, the Public Hospitals Authority, which respectively were allotted $58.5 million, $223.4 million, and $20 million respectively for national health insurance. One of the things that we do, Mr. Speaker, is to develop and administer health legislation to ensure the accountability of providers, both professionals and facilities, for the delivery of services as well as public health protection. Our legislative agenda is quite aggressive, with a total of 7 pieces of legislation in various stages of review and finalization for enactment. And we look forward to bringing them to this place shortly. They include a revision to the Medical Act, the National Health Insurance Authority Act, PHA, a new Dental Act, a new long-awaited Nurses and Midwives Act, Patients' Rights Bill 2019, and the Health Professions Act, which let me single out because we will be finally bringing some order to the unregulated funeral industry in the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, the adage that we are as strong as our weakest link is a good way for me to introduce the disease surveillance unit led by the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Pearl Macmillan, which has been the focus of preparedness and response activities for the Bahamas, generating the national plan, disseminating relevant information to frontline workers, monitoring at ports of entry in collaboration with other stakeholders, such as immigration and customs, and monitoring of returning visitors and residents. Now, we are all aware of the world's current public health challenge with the novel coronavirus, now known as COVID-19, which originated in Wuhan City in the Hubei province of China, and has now spread across more than 28 countries and threatens entries into more borders. As of this morning, some 71,899 persons have been confirmed infected with COVID-19, and 1,775 persons have died. Most of the cases are confined to mainland China, and there have been only 3 deaths outside of China. Interestingly and sadly, there are some 454 passengers on the Diamond Princess who have now been infected with this virus. And this obviously has great implications for the tourism sector and in particular the cruise sector. There have been 15 persons confirmed infected in the United States, 12 in France, 9 in the UK, and 8 in Canada. I am pleased to inform this Honorable House that even before the WHO announced COVID-19 as a public health emergency of international concern, the leaders and technical staff of my ministry have met, they were briefed, and tasked with responsibilities to ensure that necessary measures were in place to monitor, detect, and contain the spread of COVID-19, then known as novel coronavirus, if it ever reached our shores. We have met with our doctors and nurses in the Department of Public Health and the PHA, and subsequent to the announcement of the second public health emergency of international concern in some 6 months, the first being Ebola, I can confirm that we are also working closely with all government departments, NGOs, and other stakeholders to ensure that we have a coordinated and effective response. And we have hosted a series of COVID-19 sensitization meetings with stakeholders from PAHO, tourism and aviation, the hotel industry, NAD, civil aviation, border control, customs and immigration, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the Port Department, the Bahamas Doctors Union, Nurses Union, Consultant Professional Staff Association, and I could go on and on. On Friday, we led a team to Freeport, Grand Bahama to do a similar sensitization meeting, and we will continue this activity as often as is perceived necessary. Meanwhile, my ministry has established, with the support of the Prime Minister, a ministerial high-level multi-sectoral task force comprising of the Attorney General, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Minister of Transport and Local Government, the Minister of Financial Services, Trade and Industry and Immigration, their respective permanent secretaries, the Commissioner of Police, Commodore of the Defense Force, Controller of Customs, Director of Immigration, Director General of Tourism, the CEO of NAD, the Director General of Foreign Affairs, the Port Controller, the Acting Director of Local Government, and this multi-ministerial, multi-sectoral, high-level task force has been meeting weekly since its establishment on the 30th of January, 2020, to discuss COVID-19 and to review the National Preparedness and Response Plan. I must note that the Prime Minister receives weekly briefings on our activities. You see, Mr. Speaker, very early on, we were mindful that the Bahamas has vulnerabilities as an archipelagic nation, which is just recovering from the ravages of Dorian, and we felt that we would be challenged. Capable, yes, but challenged if we were to have imported cases of what was then called the novel coronavirus 2019. And so we implemented a border protection and quarantine strategy that required quarantine of any citizen or resident who had been in mainland China within 20 days of presentation at any of our borders, and denial of entry to anyone else. This was done despite the recommendations of our public health partners, who in retrospect understand and support our decision. And since that time, some 60 other countries have adopted similar policies. As of today, there are not and have not been any suspected, reported, or confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the Bahamas. I'm also pleased to report that as of today, all persons who were quarantined have been released. They are all asymptomatic, and they are now resuming normal activities. We will remain vigilant, Mr. Speaker. As the Disease Surveillance Unit focuses on activities for COVID, I must remind this Honorable House that we also have to walk and chew gum at the same time and pay attention to influenza A, influenza B, and the Ebola virus outbreak, which is still ongoing in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to switch now and talk about my ministry's enabling policies for health and well-being, and to report on our recently completed STEPS 2019 survey, the results of which are beyond shocking, underscoring that the state of our collective health remains in peril. We are no healthier now, today in 2020, than we were 15 years ago when we did the STEPS survey for the first time. So let me break it down. More of us have an unhealthy BMI, 71.6% of us, to be exact, with 4 in 10 Bahamians being classified as obese. More of us are smoking tobacco products, about 17.4%, which, while not much, is a 145% increase from 15 years ago. 92% of us drink on average 2 cans of a sugary drink every day, and 60% of us add at least 2 spoons of sugar, not saying how big, to our tea or coffee. Now, this may seem to be an abstract concept, but putting it in its simplest terms, the average Bahamian consumes 64 pounds of added sugar each year. Imagine a 5-pound bag of sugar. Each of us consumes almost 14 bags of that per year. We consume double, that includes you, South Central Andres. 1 in 12 Bahamians at high risk for having a stroke or heart attack in the next 10 years. That's 30,000 Bahamians whose quality of life and work productivity will never be the same, not to mention the impact on the lives of the people who depend on them. So these hot off the presses statistics undergirds my ministry's unashamedly dogged push for every Bahamian, young and old, to move towards better health and well-being. On December the 1st, 2019, my ministry instituted a ban on the sale and provision of beverages with added sugar to all Ministry of Health functions, events, and all of its premises. That includes our clinics, hospitals, authorities, agencies, departments, and councils. Again, I quote Winston Churchill. He said, if you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use the pile driver. Hit the point once, then come back and hit it again. Then hit it a third time. A tremendous whack. Mr. Speaker, we are going to get rid of corned beef in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
It's right here.
We can try it.
Don't do that, man.
We can get there. And we will continue to provide the facts and the evidence to provide the public with information needed for the difficult lifestyle modification that each of us needs to embrace. And we hope that these bold moves, born out of necessity and a desire to see every Bahamian beat the odds of dying prematurely from preventable diseases, would catalyze other government and private sector players. We have drafted a workplace wellness policy model that we will make available to our partners to guide their movement to health and wellness.
I promise to leave corn from public alone.
We have also obligated almost $100,000, more than any time in history, to intentionally heighten nutrition literacy among our people and to put the affordability, flavor, and healthy back into eating. And this will be fulfilled in part through our What You Cookin' Season 2. Season 1 was well recognized and is now an award-nominated show. The second season is going to be starting June 2020. We are also collaborating with the Ministry of Education to create a working group to update the lunch nutrition standards for schools. Mr. Speaker, you will no doubt be concerned about the obesogenic environments that our kids are confronted with day in and day out from within and without the school walls. But what about the challenge of school vendors or street vendors lining the spaces directly outside and near our school campuses? Quite frankly, we are not insensitive to the economic and social complexities, as this may be the sole income for many, if not all of the street vendors. But in the coming weeks, we're going to engage them and create a platform to dialogue with these vendors to arrive at alternative, meaningful, healthier solutions. I move now to Hurricane Dorian and the health response. Dorian was an unprecedented phenomenon for the Bahamas, and we have learned now how lethal the impact of climate change can be, and just how vulnerable our structures and systems are. Simultaneously, we learned of the depth of the world's humanity, spanning across the immediate response to recovery and reconstruction. We have been humbled by the strong spirit of volunteerism from within the Bahamas and around the world. In total, over 300 non-EMT volunteers have been approved and deployed to assist with the delivery of health services in Abaco, Grand Bahama, or at shelters in New Providence. These volunteers represent a wide spectrum of professionals, from doctors to nurses to dentists to mental health professionals, and the list goes on. I would be remiss, Mr. Speaker, if I didn't single out a few. Project Hope, Pacific Hope International, Samaritan's Purse, AmeriCares, Heart to Heart International, Direct Relief, International Medical Corps, Carnival Corporation, Rubicon, and the Miller School of Medicine at the University of Miami. William Arthur Ward penned a statement that feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it away. My ministry and the people of the Bahamas shall not be guilty of this. And so for every volunteer who came for one day or 1 month, who witnessed us in our moment of national frailty, and who gave of their time and talent without expectation of return, we say a heartfelt thank you. Mr. Speaker, as we respect the lives of those lost, we commit to rebuilding for generations to come. And so to guide my ministry's rebuilding campaign, we have developed a comprehensive roadmap articulating 8 expected results at a projected cost of $77.8 million across Abaco, Grand Bahama, and New Providence. And through these, we will, 1, restore healthcare delivery capacity and access. 2, restore surveillance of communicable disease and injury along with surveillance of wash and environmental determinants. ensure effective mental health and psychosocial support to affected individuals, families, communities, and first responders. 4, effect a robust health education, promotion, and public communication thrust. 5, effective disaster victim and mass casualty management. 6, ensure effective coordination and management of international assistance to effectively address urgent and evolving needs. 7, ensure ready access to relevant information for decision making. And finally, improve governance by strengthening the health sector capacity for disaster preparedness and response. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the honorable member for Engliston would be pleased as I report that our national reference laboratory capacity, which is an essential diagnostic component of an optimally functioning health system, was recently accredited for the 4th time. And the accreditation assessors congratulated the lab and said that it was at a standard higher than many of the labs they visited at universities in the United States. You may know, Mr. Speaker, that the daughter of the honorable member for Engliston leads our national reference lab, and she does a phenomenal job. We are expanding our capacity in that lab, and very shortly, we will have the ability to test for, among other things, COVID-19. To speak briefly on our national HIV/AIDS program, we have made accomplishments in 2019. Although we continue to have new infections, the number of new infections have continued to decrease. Over the last 11 years, cases among females decreased by 63% and males by 39%. We have had no cases of mother-to-child transmission among women who received antenatal care. In another aspect of my ministry's work, Mr. Speaker, we have been paying very, very close attention to mental health, and we have increased our work and advocacy in that area. Last July, we engaged PAHO in the training of some 30 providers in psychological first aid, and they came in handy during the aftermath of Dorian. The Ministry of Health was able to play an important role in ensuring that persons providing care from outside the country were appropriately registered and identified. We have also, Mr. Speaker, gone about the work of reviewing the existing Mental Health Act of 1969. Yes, 1969. It's been 50 years. So 50 years later, we are finally positioned to provide a significant upgrade to the way persons with mental health illnesses, a recognized disability, are treated in the Bahamas. And we anticipate that the first draft will be available for wide stakeholder review and discourse shortly after Easter this year. Another challenge that we've been focused on has been cancer. From data published, the Bahamas has one of the highest rates of aggressive forms of breast cancer in the Western Hemisphere. Yes, in 2016, the Cancer Registration Act was passed, but it was not until 2019 that we were able to gain some headway in putting in place a minimum set of support structures to establish the actual registry. And more recently, the National Cancer Advisory Board held their first inaugural meeting on the 13th of February at their offices on Village Road. Mr. Speaker, when a person is a victim of violence and must access the healthcare services, or for other people, they can sometimes be confronted with delays, poor attitudes, lack of compassion, and sometimes lack of information from the healthcare providers. In attempting to address this unfortunate state of affairs, the Ministry of Health, in supporting the basic human right to access health services, embarked on developing the Patient Rights Bill 2019. Dame Anita Allen, the Commissioner for Law Reform, led the multidisciplinary team comprised of many stakeholders from across our society. The Patients Rights Bill 2019 we hope will set a new standard for quality healthcare services. And we anticipate presenting this bill to the Honorable House in due course. Now, as I move towards discussions of accomplishments in primary, secondary, and tertiary care services, I now turn my attention to a somewhat vexing problem, and that is the challenges of young doctors in this country. Mr. Speaker, over the years, there's been an escalating number of doctors completing medical education. And while this is an accomplishment for the country, due to inequitable distribution within and across the public health sector in favor of hospital training as opposed to community settings, we have had challenges, creating a logjam for some 350 young doctors working in the post of a senior house officer. The Public Hospitals Authority is no longer able to sustain unfettered hiring and to maintain its other financial commitments. This year, we saw the matter come to a head. The policy approach of kicking the difficult decisions down the road, admittedly by successive administrations, has gotten us to the labor relations and professional nightmare that we experience today. And so, Mr. Speaker, we have created an Office of Medical Staff Development, and we have started to look at the plight of these young doctors. This year, we collaborated with the Ministry of Education to create an objective process to select the top 10 medical students to be accepted to the UWI medicine program. Just 10 this year, 10 next year, and 25 per year moving forward. I can say, Mr. Speaker, that as of today, all persons completing their internship in July of 2019 have either been given a contract to work at the Public Hospital Authority or they will be given a contract to work in the Ministry of Health or the Department of Public Health. We believe that we ought to have coverage throughout the length and breadth of the archipelago. And so, even as we have attempted to improve posting coverage to islands that did not have a physician, such as Sims, Long Island, Sandy Point, Abaco, we have also had additional physicians go to Exuma. We've had monthly physician coverage into Mayaguana, the Exuma Keys, and weekly coverage into Abaco. By September 2020, the plan is to have physicians posted throughout our family islands, including Cooperstown, Marsh Harbor, and Moores Island, Andros, Fresh Creek, Mangrove Key, and Kemps Bay. They're South and Central Andros, San Salvador, and Spanish Wells. I move now to nursing. We can get to you. The recruitment, training, and retention of nurses remains a major priority of the Ministry of Health. And one of our recruitment strategies is the nursing cadet program, which we've expanded. I am pleased that we have also had success in continuing our efforts to educate and train our nursing staff. In August of 2019, some 22 registered nurses completed or commenced midwifery training, and an additional 7 nurses will commence training in an emergency nursing course in Jamaica. In addition, some 43 candidates from UB and 7 from Terev College in Grand Bahama were successful in the December 2019 sitting of the Nursing Council's final exam for registration. And I am pleased to say that as of 2019, we have reversed the reduction in the number of nurses in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Nurses have also been the beneficiaries of a scarcity allowance for registered nurses and trained clinical nurses. Now, in the few minutes that I have left, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to speak about the Public Hospitals Authority, where of the $223 million, some 73% go towards personal emoluments, leaving only 4% for medical surgical supplies, 6% for drugs and vaccines, 2% for dialysis and radiation services. We all are aware of the limited bed capacity, but we are adding beds. Indeed, some additional 22 beds will be available in about 6 to 8 weeks in the old operating theater at Princess Margaret Hospital, which is currently being renovated. We are addressing the chronic issue of borders. Mr. Speaker, another area that I would like to pay attention to is the issue of revenue. And we have completed the training of a number of coders who we believe will allow us to improve on the $10 million per year that we ultimately collect. In the arena of healthcare and service delivery, we are identifying those low-hanging fruit that can be picked or harvested in order to improve the quality of care that our people receive. No, I appreciate that. In terms of management and labor relations, we have 4 trade unions with which we negotiate: the Bahamas Doctors Union, the Bahamas Nurses Union, the Bahamas Public Service Union, and the newly established CPSA. 2019 was, to say, an interesting and challenging year. But we soldier on, Mr. Speaker, and I believe that we have managed to engage some of the chronic and vexing problems that have defied solution for decades. I am pleased to report that our accident and emergency and urgent care project continues to progress. The overall goal of this project is to reduce the problem of severe overcrowding at A&E, while strengthening the emergency and urgent healthcare services delivered within the public sector. The start of these works in November 2019 has led to many changes in and around the hospital. The first part of the construction provides enabling works required for the entire project, including temporary relocation of the emergency trauma entrance, and will create a new environment for wound care and orthopedics, as well as a new entrance for the emergency department and required civil works. This is being done at a cost of $3.7 million and will take us approximately 40 weeks. Mr. Speaker, I will end by giving an update on the National Health Insurance Authority, which as of this year now has a total of 73,000 Bahamians enrolled, an increase since the start of the financial year of 33%. By the end of this fiscal year, the number of NHI beneficiaries will likely approach 100,000. Mr. Speaker, it has been a challenging time for health. Despite that, we soldier on. It has been a privilege to serve the people of the Bahamas. We don't run away from the challenges. We deal with them head on. We try to speak to the challenges as they come up. And ultimately, we hope to leave the health sector in this country better off than we found it. Elizabeth supports this resolution.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many?
Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, good morning. I rise on behalf of the wonderful, hard-working, and industrious people of Long Island. It's a great privilege to serve my people. I always brag about being from Long Island, being Long Island through and through, with half of my family from the south and the other half from the north. A grandpa from the south and a grandmother from the north, with family on both ends and sprinkled throughout. My great-grandparents are from Buckley's, Turnbull, Sims, O'Neill's. Mr. Speaker, this is a place where I reside, where I have business interests, where I was raised and went to school, where my heart lives. There's no greater feeling than representing your own hometown, the people who helped with your upbringing and who grew up with you. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the students of the NGM Major High School in Long Island for their high-flying performances during the BGCSE and recent BJC. These students were recently awarded at the Ministry of Education's National Award Ceremony. They made our island proud. So let me acknowledge Sierra Tanquest, who attained the top BJC results in Long Island with 9 A's and 1 B. Luke Knowles, who attained the top BGCSE results in the country in math and combined science, and top BGCSE results in Long Island with 5 A's and 2 B's. And I note the presence of his sister here today. Karen Rogers, who attained the top award in BJC math and finished with 8 A's and 1 B. Mason Baker, who attained 7 A's, 1 B, and 1 C in BJC examinations. And of course, Alea Adderley, who attained 5 A's, 1 B, and 1 C in the BGCSE examinations. Mr. Speaker, I also want to commend their parents, Dwight and Stephanie Tanquest, Wade and Shami Knowles, Warren and Carla Rogers, Robert and Sean Baker, and Chanel Wallace. We also extend congratulations to the administration and the hardworking teachers, staff, and the tutors as well, the NGM Major High School. To them, I say, continue to make Long Island proud. We are proud of you. To those grade 12 students from the North Long Island High School and the NGM Major High School who were unable to travel to Exuma recently for a college fair due to poor weather, I want you to know that I will continue to work with the organizers to facilitate such an experience. I look forward to working with JA and to JA coming to Long Island to bring the college fair next year. Mr. Speaker, I want to extend sincerest condolences also to the families of Mr. Maxwell, Mackie Knowles, Ms. Annie Tanquest, Mr. Raymond Fox, Mr. Joe Smith, Mr. Thomas Adderley, Mr. Joey Trico, Mr. Hubert Miller, Mrs. Naomi Wells, and Miss Marvi Adderley. May the Lord's peace be with you, and may their souls rest in peace. I'd also like to wish a happy 90th birthday to my grandaunt, Florence Tiny Gibson Taylor of Deadman's Key, Long Island. She's the sister of my grandfather, Bishop Edward Gibson, and the grandmother of my second cousin, Reynard Rigby. We're on different sides, though. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by stating my support for the midterm budget. I've seen the devastation caused by Hurricane Dorian in Abaco and Grand Bahama, and my heart goes out to them. To carry out major works, $15 million was earmarked for the Water and Sewage Corporation to effect restoration works in Abaco, its Keys, and Sweetings Key. There's much to do ahead, Mr. Speaker. However, I can confirm that we have restored normal water supply to our customers in the following settlements on mainland Abaco: Crown Haven, Foxtown, Mount Hope, Wood Key, Cedar Harbor, Cooperstown, Fire Road, Blackwood, Casarino, Cherokee, Crossing Rock, and Sandy Point. Many people, multiple teams of people are involved in these works. We have experienced some recent challenges with our water supply systems on the islands of Moores Island and Grand Key, and we expect those to be rectified in the coming days. The Grand Key storage tank was destroyed during the hurricane, and a contract has been issued for the demolition of that tank, and another contract has been issued for a new 125,000 imperial gallon storage tank. Mr. Speaker, last week, WSC mobilized a private contractor to assist our team working to complete extensive repairs to our Marsh Harbor distribution system, which includes the communities of Marsh Harbor, Spring City, Dundastown, Murphytown, Central Pines, Pelican Shores, and Eastern Shores. It is expected that these works will continue for the next few months, resulting in substantial improvements in the reliability of our Marsh Harbor water supply system. At the Marsh Harbor pumping site, WSC will commence major clearance work in the coming days for a new 1.5 million imperial gallon storage tank that has already been contracted, a new pumping station building, and 2 new solar power fields. New standby generators were delivered last week for both the new pumping station and another for the well fields. When completed, our Marsh Harbor pumping station will be the most advanced pumping station in the Family Islands, with sufficient solar capacity to operate our entire well field and pumping station, along with standby power and BPL for use when the sunlight is not available. Last week, WSC mobilized a private contractor to assist our teams working to complete extensive repairs to our Treasure Key distribution system, which includes the communities of Treasure Key and Green Turtle Key. These works will continue for a few months. At the Treasure Key pumping station, a new standby generator has already been installed, and this generator is powering our facilities as BPL power is unavailable at the moment. The storage tank at this facility was destroyed during the storm, and demolition works will be starting in the coming days to remove the collapsed tank and tank slab to make room for a new 750,000 imperial gallon tank that has already been contracted. The contract has been issued for the repair of the Green Turtle Key storage tank that was damaged during the hurricane. We are also carrying out repairs to our underwater transmission line that runs between Treasure Key and Green Turtle Key. On Sweden's Key, which is managed as a part of our Abaco operations, the non-governmental agency Water Mission has provided a standby generator and a desalination plant, as the complete water production facility on the island was destroyed during the hurricane, and the distribution system also experienced substantial damage. The generator, and the desalination plant are operational and providing water for the remaining residents. The Speaker let me know that we have also purchased an RO plant for Sweetings Key and one for Moores Island. They're currently in Grand Bahama and are being shipped for installation this week. Detailed condition assessment reports have been completed for our Treasure Key and Spring City sewage stations, both of which incurred substantial damage during the passage of the hurricane. We will commence the required sewage refurbishment works in the coming weeks. To support our operational and commercial teams, a fleet of new vehicles and required equipment has been procured. We lost our entire Abaco fleet due to the storm surge, flying debris, etc. Per our claims, our insurance company has since taken custody of the same. To date, WSC has awarded the contracts for vehicles, equipment, new facilities, restoration works, and services in excess of $8.3 million, and we anticipate several $1 million in contracts will be awarded in the coming weeks. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to turn my attention to my constituency before returning to WSC matters. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my executive team. In a few weeks, I'll be taking them to our annual dinner. As we move towards fresh association elections, I cannot put into words how much the support, encouragement, efforts, and advice of these wonderful people mean to me. I thank them for all that they do. Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank the Minister of Works, the member for Carmichael, for his noble efforts to assist me in Long Island. Words cannot properly capture the respect, admiration, and honor I have for him. And the member is a key mentor. He's been a blessing to me in service to the people of Long Island. And he's been supportive. His trust and guidance in my tenure at the Water and Sewage Corporation, I must also acknowledge. I can also count on him to provide sage political advice, sage professional and personal advice as well. Mr. Speaker, Long Island has never fully recovered from Hurricane Joaquin. It has set us back many years due to the horrific losses experienced during the storm. Added to that, our island was suffering from decades of neglect and degradation. I am proud to announce that the Newton Key Bridge at Seymour's Long Island is complete. I'm happy to see the wonderful work done at that bridge by Stephen Knowles and his crew of Long Island-based contractors. Notably, progress is also being made on the roadway to the Columbus Monument and the development of the monument site, so that artisans and artists and local entrepreneurs can also take advantage of the economic opportunities that this will create. Mr. Speaker, some time ago we pledged to bring a satellite passport office to Long Island. And I can say today that we are moving closer to that, and space has been identified and infrastructure will be soon put in place to commence passport services. I want to thank the member for Don Abaco for his assistance. Mr. Speaker, our water expansion program is going well in Long Island. Thus far, mains have been extended to the capital for the first time and in areas where there's never been running water. Yet there's much work to do, and we are working assiduously towards that. Over the next few weeks and months, we will be upgrading the plants to expand capacity and commissioning a new booster station. Once done, the water will be turned on. We have also installed community storage tanks for communities in Dunmores, Berries, Roses, Mortimers, and Woodhill. We have long known that no potable water equals no future development. Mr. Speaker, we have had some challenges with our road network, and I do not want to preempt my minister because I know that, yes, he has some good things that lie for us. Yes. So, with respect to healthcare, Mr. Speaker, we're looking forward to the undertaking of construction and repairs at the two major community clinics, that is in Sims and McKinsey's, and of course, the promised ambulances for the people of Long Island. I also wish to commend Dr. Carter and the nurses and medical staff of Long Island for their hard work. Speaker, we've undertaken a number of projects from the constituency fund of ramps and bunches, Militon and Cartwrights, and Miller's Units, to farm roads, bus shelters, fire bowsers, and various other projects. So we are pleased some of the small works, capital works, and other undertakings we have carried out in Long Island. I will be writing to my colleagues on various issues that I hope to update my constituents on in June. Let me also thank the member for Bamboo Town. In a few weeks, road traffic department offices with printing machines for driver's licenses will be commissioned. This is good news for the people of Long Island who have not had that printed driver's license in years. Bamboo Town, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I could not come to this place today and not mention our airport. That is the number one concern of the people of Long Island. The Dedmuskie Airport was built in the 1950s, 70 years ago. During the last budget debate, our government pledged to allocate funds for the construction of a new, fully functioning international airport in Long Island during the 2020-2021 budget. I thank the Honorable Prime Minister for making this commitment to the people of Long Island. In recent days, I spoke to the member for Kalani, and he informed me that he had recently reviewed architectural plans for the airport. I've also seen such plans, and later this afternoon, Mr. Algernon Cargill, the architect, and other involved parties will be meeting with me to discuss the same. The airport will represent the turnaround of the economy of Long Island that is desperately needed. The lack of airlift is killing Long Island. This has held Long Island back. It will also provide an economic boom from construction activity, taxis and tour companies, restaurants, fishing, rental cars, etc. Mr. Speaker, as a little boy, I grew up hearing promises of the international airport. We talked about a Back to the Island campaign or initiative during the campaign, wherein family islands would be spurred on by development on their respective islands to return home. Our airport is key to all of this. For 35 years, I have been waiting. 3 of those, I have been the MP. I hope that we can do what has only been promised to the people of Long Island. Mr. Speaker, during the last decade or so, we've been told that the airport would come. Businessmen such as Ellis Major began to invest. I did too, opening a car rental business, a rental building, etc. I even had plans drawn to do 4 villas. But as time progressed and we realized that it would not come, I shelved those plans. Ellis Major stopped further construction. More people graduated and left Long Island. Resorts cut back on staff. And even the Cape Santa Maria was put on the market for sale. Gus Cartwright tells me that he would immediately begin constructing villas once the airport starts. Ellis Major has similarly stated that he would construct 30 villas once it starts. There are several others who have plans that are contingent upon the airport. Millions of dollars worth of investment, Mr. Speaker. This is the gateway to the future for Long Island. Whether persons live in Long Island, on any island, in the Caribbean, in the Americas, Europe, wherever, every MP in this House who has Long Island constituents knows and has been approached by Long Islanders. So they know how important this is to us. This means everything to us. The Member of Parliament for Fox Hill told me how she is beat up daily. The same for Freetown. Long Islanders will return home. Will feel like our cries have been heard. Will feel respected. Mr. Speaker, this is also an opportunity to diversify our product, to allow islands to become developed and serve as leaders in the sector. If each of the islands become reasonably sized population centers, that would do wonders for the people. Mr. Speaker, I just want to briefly also note that I believe that we should make some adjustments to the Family Islands Development Encouragement Act. For those persons in particular, those second homeowners who come into these islands, build homes as residences, and then use it for commercial purposes. At the very least, they should be made to pay customs once they do so. And so I'll be writing as well to the Minister of Finance with respect to outstanding taxation and taxes and business licenses and so on the island, because I know a lot of abuse with respect to persons who are not Bahamians renting vehicles, engaging in hotels and bed and breakfasts and all these other things without business licenses, etc. Mr. Speaker, WSC continues to move from strength to strength. We've embarked on various institutional reforms. I will expand more on these in June, but I note here today means extension works in islands such as Long Island, South Andrews, Crooked Island, Cat Islands, and Salvador. Crooked Island, your material is on the ground and your works have commenced. Speaker, I'll expand on these in the budget debate in June, given the time constraint. Speaker, the staff of the Water and Sewage Corporation, or who make WSC the entity that it is, today I express my thanks and appreciation to them for their hard work. I also note that the vast majority of our 420 member staff chose not to participate in the recent strike. We thank them for their service. We thank them for remaining in their posts to serve the Bahamian public. Over the next 3 weeks, I, along with the general manager, will have scheduled meetings with each department. I want to hear your concerns. I want to feel your questions, etc. Unless it is not logistically possible, it is my intent to come to you, to meet with you in your usual workspace. Mr. Speaker, in recent days, we've had some setback at WSC due to strike action. Over the last few days, I have been particularly subject to attack. While this comes with the territory, my only difficulty is when it is untrue and or personal. I also understand that as a politician, whether I know or don't know, I would be the subject of an attack to garner the most attention. I want the nation to know that any action we have taken is in the best interest of the corporation and the Bahamian people. It is unfortunate that this has been completely blown out of proportion, no doubt also due to politics. Perhaps a little background will provide some clarity on what appears to be an unfortunate personalization or personalizing of these actions. When I was appointed in 2017, Mr. Dwayne Woods, the president of Boosawu, sent me a letter requesting the renewal of his administrative leave, and I will table that letter today, Mr. Speaker. I have brought that letter here today. In a meeting at my office on the 5th September 2017, he requested that I give him a corporate car, a corporate cell phone, proficiency pay, and an increase in salary. Mr. Woods at the time had not reported for duty in about 6 to 7 years. He reiterated a previous request made from another chairman, corporation official, and I have that letter. I brought that as well. I denied those requests, telling him that the union could not furnish him with a car, a corporate cell phone, etc. In early 2018, I discovered that Mr. Woods' union owed WSC $42,000 in back rent. I brought it to his attention in 2018. He pleaded with me to forgive the debt and committed to making monthly payments thereafter. As a gesture of good faith, I took it to the board, and we did just that. I then informed him that the board had forgiven the debt and what our expectations would be, that is, he would make his monthly payment. And that, like all union leaders before him who paid the rent, that he would consistently make monthly rental payments. A short time later, immediately after our forgiving of the debt, he filed a trade dispute, contending that he should not pay any rent. In February 2018, Mr. Woods requested a promotion to management. We have that in writing. The corporation obliged him. Once done, Mr. Woods met resistance from his own members. Subsequently, he publicly accused WSC of seeking the union bust, all whilst writing WSC and requesting that we hold a promotion for him for a little while longer. We have that correspondence. I'll table that. Following that, the board determined not to grant any leave and wrote to him to return to work. He was reminded that then BPL Union President Paul Maynard and others in similar utilities had to report to work daily. That if he did not, his union could pay, that if he didn't want to return to work, his union could just pay him. Once informed, Mr. Woods also spoke to Minister Bannister and requested a grace period. The minister and I spoke and agreed to give him a grace period of 4 months to get his affairs in order. He agreed to the same. He was scheduled to return to work on the 2nd of January 2019. However, prior to his return, he filed a number of trade disputes and took action against us in the Supreme Court. He was repeatedly directed to return to work by the general manager, by myself, and by the minister.
Honorable member, you just said that he took action in the Supreme Court.
That action is complete, Mr. Speaker.
That is complete?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He lost the Supreme Court case, resulting in him owing WSC $25,000 in court costs. In June, he sent word that he would come back to work, having had his salary cut since March. In March 2019, his salary was coded. When he realized that there was no pay that Thursday, on that Monday, he used the case of two persons who we had interdicted. In this instance, Mr. Woods again encouraged staff to walk off the job without a strike certificate. He subsequently moved to attain one. Notwithstanding all of that, sometime thereafter, in the interest of good faith, I took Mr. Woods to lunch at the Poof Deck, East Bay. The general manager accompanied me. I wanted to establish a more harmonious relationship between us all. Unfortunately, that gesture did not pan out as hoped. In recent months, Mr. Speaker, the Accounts Department flagged several claims for overtime from a team deployed to Abaco. In this instance, about 10 or so deployed.
Honorable member,
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
is on driving into Parliament this morning, I heard on the news that there's a pending matter before the Chief Justice. And so I wouldn't, based on the sub judice rule, I wouldn't want you to delve into any of the facts or evidence that is related to the current matter. I believe that I heard on the news that the Chief Justice is intending to have an inter-parties hearing of the matter next week.
No.
To determine whether or not he will extend an injunction that was given.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to get into the material facts. I'm just laying out what caused this to happen, okay? Which has to do with what we expect to be an abuse of overtime in Abaco, from 300 hours being claimed by individual employees to the tune of from 9,000 to 14,000 per person.
Honorable, I'm listening to his explanation so I can.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, so we're just giving background as to what led to the strike. Okay? So, Mr. Speaker, be it as it may. I'll move on. Mr. Speaker, the corporation has great difficulty with this, okay? With paying these amounts out for a 1 month period, which will come up to some $200,000 in overtime for about 10 workers. Mr. Speaker, we believe there's no other instance of the corporation where we have not been paying overtime, holiday pay, etc. It just concerns a team deployed to Abaco for the month of October, wherein we noted or our Accounts Department flagged these abuses. So, Mr. Speaker, Sometime last summer, we also received an industrial agreement, the proposal from Mr. Woods. That agreement ended in June 2018, and as is the practice, the corporation expected the proposal before that June 2018 date. Unfortunately, it was delivered in the summer of 2019, and notwithstanding our focus on hurricane recovery thereafter, WSC has been assiduously working on that counter proposal. It is an ongoing work in progress. An ongoing work in progress. We are also guided by the grievance procedure as set out in the industrial agreement, a 5-step grievance procedure that ends with the Department of Labor. Mr. Speaker, let me note here that the industrial agreement for the managers union expired in 2013. However, the former administration refused to sign off on it due to the same reasons that this administration expressed observations. The member for Cat Island would be aware of this, yet he disingenuously stood before cameras and attacked me. I've seen the correspondence. The member met with the managers union several times during his tenure, yet nothing was signed. The member knows that the former government also expressed serious reservations about signing that agreement that would be inclusive of an Article 2019, Article 29, sorry. Mr. Speaker, in a correspondence to me, one of the two persons now asserting leadership of the union said to me, this is in 2017, we wish to commend and thank both yourself, the board of directors, the minister, and the government for the forthright and honest manner in which the union has been treated since this government came into office. The change is truly refreshing. And then he spoke about being advised that the matter, their agreement, had been referred to the OAG by the Prime Minister Christie himself. He ends his letter by saying, your humble servant, Admiral Rule, President. Mr. Speaker, I'll table that. Mr. Speaker, the issue with Article 29 is this. It will require WSC to wait for a 90-day period until the union's president determines if he wishes to bid on a contract or not. It would also, Mr. Speaker, those bidders and select members of the union would also be allowed to bid contracts all remaining in the employ of the corporation. So the question is, who would evaluate the contracts? If persons have ideas about project estimates, given their position in WSC, how would that work? We inherited all of this. This has been ongoing since 2015. So Speaker, the Supreme Court Justice Ian Winder issued a ruling on Article 29. The essence of that ruling aligned with WSC's views. However, then President refused to sign an agreement with Article 29 for 7 years. And the member for Cat Island knows that because he has the correspondence too. Mr. Speaker, desirous of obtaining an amicable industrial agreement with our managers. But the managers union is at a crossroads. There are two persons there asserting the presidency. Two persons are signing on letters to the president under the WSMU letterhead. Therefore, we are constrained to recognize either party until the court makes a determination. This is a court matter as well. I'll move on. Mr. Speaker, permit me to share a little about my background. Long before entering politics, I was trained to. I taught at the L.W. Young Junior High School, S.M. McPherson Junior High School, for a short stint at the College of the Bahamas, now UB. I was also a reporter for the Tribune for a period during my college days and became the youngest columnist in the Bahamas at age 20. I wrote a serious column for nearly 13 years until I gave it up upon being nominated. Mr. Speaker, I'm also a businessman, both here in New Providence and in Long Island. Like the member for Cat Island, I am a counsel and attorney at law and played a lead role in some of the biggest recent cases in our country. For example, judicial review, parliamentary privilege, habeas corpus matters, etc. Fred Smith QC, one of the real and true QCs, was my esteemed senior at Calendars & Co. Although Mr. Smith presented me to the bar and recruited me, I wanted to experience clerking for a judge. And so I served as the judicial clerk for Chief Justice of Michael Barnett for 6 months before going to Calendars. I stepped back from day-to-day practice to pursue a higher calling, that is service as an elected official to my home people to my country. I trust that the member can appreciate that that is not the professional background of a child. In 1 week, the PLP in its leadership has degraded dark-skinned people and young people. Last week, one Miss DeVoe proclaimed that their party does not like dark-skinned people. What? Or she said darkies. She said that dark-skinned people heat up a room.
You don't like grassroots?
Now the leader of the party refers to a 35-year-old member of parliament, a father, a professional, a business person, his colleague, as a child. On Friday, I watched a disrespectful interview with a member for Cat Island referred to me, his parliamentary colleague, as a child. He was clearly more focused on scoring cheap political brownie points. It is clear that there appears to be a political arrangement in the background of all of this. Politics should never motivate union actions. Mr. Speaker, I'm requesting a further 5 minutes up to complete. A further 5 minutes up to complete.
Honorable, 3 minutes on honorable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, politics should never motivate union actions, yet unfortunately, it often does. I say to the 20, 30, and 40-somethings under the sound of my voice, take note. This is what the member for Cat Island and the PLP think of you. Don't be fooled by them. Do not allow them to use youthful props. These comments show you exactly what the leadership of the PLP think of young people. I was elected by the Bahamian public and appointed to do a job. If doing my job to the best of my ability and in the interest and well-being of the Bahamian public is considered the acts of a child, then, Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas needs more children in leadership. The comments of the member gave the public an insight into the mind of someone who wants to be Prime Minister. 60% of the Bahamas' population is between 0 and 40. I'm 35, 36 this year. If I am considered a child, then certainly 60% are also viewed as hapless children by a man who wants to be Prime Minister. Children cannot vote. We must remember how he dismissed young people as children, errant children at that. What was even more disrespectful was the loud cackling of disrespectful PLPs who accompanied him. This attempt to denigrate was insulting and disrespectful, smacks of ageism, and allows us all to infer as to exactly what the member, or that the member would not give opportunities to those persons, young persons, if elected. Surely the member for Cat Island must have forgotten that Sir Lyndon Finland was elected at 26 and became Premier at 37.
My Lord.
Surely he knows that former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram became Prime Minister at 42. That current Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness became Prime Minister at 39. That New Zealand has a young, vibrant female Prime Minister who was elected at 36. That Austria has a Chancellor who entered office at 31. Surely he knows that Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Yahoo are all formed by early 20-somethings. Mr. Speaker, the commentary of the member for Cat Island reminds me of Sir Lyndon's delivery boy Bob, the former Prime Minister. Was I childish when I extended an invite to the member to San Salvador when we commissioned the water extension? I didn't have to tell him a word, but it was about respect, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, was I childish when we began expanding water infrastructure throughout the archipelago? Mr. Speaker, in a Tribune article dated 4th January 2019, I want you to listen to what the member for Cat Island said about this child. I want you to listen to this, Mr. Speaker. This is a Tribune article and I adopt the contents.
This is good. I want his.
Mr. Davis said, I'd like to acknowledge the Executive Chairman of the Water and Sewage Corporation, Mr. Adrian Gibson, the MP for Long Island. Just let me express my appreciation for the political maturity you have shown and are showing, because many don't. There are some amongst us that still have the political immaturity. I say that to you because I want you to also appreciate and hope that other members of the government take a page out of your book, because at the end of the day, we are all still one.
Who said that?
There are many islands that make up the Bahamas. Each has its distinctive features, but at the end of the day, we are still one Bahamas.
Honorable
We
member.
all have to adhere to
Honorable
ensuring
member.
that the common good is promoted, rather than those things that dwell upon us or that keeps us divided. I take my hat off to Mr. Gibson for his demonstration of maturity.
Honorable member, we have to end there. We have gone
Mr.
beyond.
Just
You've gone beyond. Gone beyond.
seconds, Mr.
You've
Speaker.
gone beyond your 3 minutes. I allowed you to go for. Honorable member, the documents that you intend to table.
I will, Mr. Speaker, just allow me to finish this last paragraph, so, and I'll wrap up. Can I?
I'm paying of mine.
The member for Yamacraw?
Honorable member for Long Island.
Yes.
Only the check can determine that.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. Mr.
You
Speaker,
have
if-
one paragraph you said?
Yes, sir.
Complete it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. To the people of Cat Island, I'm reviewing plans for your water mains project today. Cat Island, the child will come to deliver water in your homes. The former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works with responsibility for water sat in that ministerial chair for 5 years. That is 1,825 days, 260 weeks, and 60 months. Yet he could not deliver water to his people. And so now, Cat Island, this little boy will deliver water to you. And not in a bucket, not in a 16-ounce bottle with my face on it. We will be laying pipes and delivering it via pipes. We will do in 3 years what the member could not do in 25 years of service to the people of Cat Island. Mr. Speaker, there's nothing childish about demanding accountability, nothing childish about collecting the government's monies. We've reduced our receivables by 10 million. Nothing childish about desiring structure, nothing childish about curbing abuses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable member for Long Island, the documents that you indicated that you would table.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't mess with that child no more. Child, please.
Mr. Speaker, these are the meeting notes that was had between Boosavu on the 6th of February and the 11th of October when they said we didn't meet with them. Mr. Speaker, this is the article where Mr. Woods spoke about my political maturity. 70. This is the article where he spoke about my political maturity.
Order that
This is
the
the
document
member.
do lie on the table.
For Cat Island. Mr. Speaker, this is the letter from the President of the Management Union praising me prior to
Order that this document,
not signing
newspaper report, to lie on the table.
the agreement, praising me for being forthright and honest. Mr. Speaker, these are a number of letters between us, myself, Mr. Bannister, Mr. Woods, Corporation, with
Order
respect
that this document to lie
to
on the
administrative leave. Mr. Speaker, this is a letter here from Mr. Woods asking for increment.
Order that the document do lie on the
This one
table.
was sent in 2016. Mr. Speaker, this is the completed court case where Justice Winder is ruling aligned
Order that the
with our
document
position
do lie on
relative
the
to
table.
Article 29.
Order that the document do lie on the table.
Mr. Speaker, there was also a series of emails. And I believe I may have given them up with the meeting notes.
Yes, I think I saw some emails in the first package.
And question. Yeah, those emails, sir, they were sent to me, Mr. Speaker. I just want to give you background. They were sent to me on Tuesday. I believe it was the 4th of February. I copied Minister Bryan, copied Minister Bannister as well. And I was asked to intervene to facilitate a meeting for the corporation. I was here in this place the next day when the general manager sent me a note informing me that Mr. Woods had called a press conference
Honorable
to
member.
which I
Thank you very much. Honorable,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one more document I'd like to. This relates to the $25,000 in court costs owed to WSA. That's an email correspondence between myself and the lawyers.
thank you, honorable member. Order the document do lie on the table. As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Angleston
Madam Speaker, you
on a point of order.
yeah, well, I mean, a point of concern about the matter being before the court and documents being laid that may appear to relate to what led up to or some input into the issues before the court, the email exchanges, etc. I don't know what it says. I have not seen it, but I believe that the court that you should scrutinize it, Mr. Speaker, to ensure it does not violate the concern of a matter being sub judice. I would just recommend that because I think the risk, there is a risk that it might impact the matter before the court.
That's a good point. Honorable member. With respect to the emails, let me see that package, Mr. Clark. The very first document. Okay, the chair, at this time, the chair will undertake to scrutinize the emails in particular before those emails are released to the press. As many? Honorable member for Angleston. According to the lineup that I have in my possession, you are next.
Okay, I've had a discussion with, I've had a discussion with the leader of government business about this because there has been an agreed principle over the last 3 years almost that you'd have a certain amount of government speakers to a ratio of opposition speakers. There are only 4 of us and now 2 independents. And of course, this is a budget debate. Before we've heard from a handful of ministers. The government has put in the back end all of their ministers, so us in the opposition are really constrained to participate in this debate. The debate is really about the budget, which is the ministerial involvement. And I indicated to the member, and he's here, that he ought to, the government ought to be faithful to what was agreed before as to the ratio between government speakers and opposition speakers. It has parity, and we don't need to be reminded of anything. That is what our agreement has been, Mr. Speaker. And I'm asking, I want the government member, to put on the record whether that has been the practice and whether we are departing from it, and if so, with what reason?
Honorable member, before I recognize you, member for Bamboo Town, are you suggesting by your intervention that the list that I have was not an agreed list?
That list emanates from the government. I never agreed.
That wasn't the question. The question
It is not an agreed list, Mr. Speaker. It's not an agreed list. It's not an agreed list.
Honorable member.
It's not an agreed list.
Honorable member, resume your seat. Honorable member for Mangrove Key, South and Central Andros, as the leader of opposition business, my understanding is that as a matter of long-standing procedure and tradition since I've been the speaker, the member for the government leader and the opposition leader would consult and determine an agreed list. Is it the position of the opposition that the list that I have, which suggests that the member for Angleston is next in the lineup, is not an agreed list?
The list was publicized, and it is, like the member for Angleston so well noted, it comes from the government's representative member for Foxhill. And there was an understanding that the member would speak today. I think the member would have spoken directly to the member for Bamboo Town with leader of government business about having some other arrangement worked out, but I wouldn't have been privy to those final discussions, but I think they would have had some discussions this morning. But my thing is, at the end of the day, I would be grateful if the member for Bamboo Town would acquiesce as the leader of government business, and allowing the good member for Angleston to have some more time to prepare so that she can also have some further preparation to get more presentation done.
Honorable member for Angleston, I'm about to recognize one member for Bamboo Town so that he can respond to the opposition leader of business.
Mr. Speaker,
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, for the record, this is the first time, Mr. Speaker, that we, in the parliaments previous, there was no speaking list given. I was the deputy whip with the Progressive Liberal Party's government in the last administration. So I want to start there. And, Mr. Speaker, my mentor, Dr. Nordage, would point, and you stood up to speak. And if you didn't speak, you were passed over if it was the opposition. So let's start there. But let's talk about what we have done. We publish a list. My whip, the whip of the House, publishes a list a week, 5 days, usually a week before we come into the debate, and we send it to the opposition. There is an understanding as to the amount of members that speaks from our side and speak from their side. The first time, Mr. Speaker, we put out the list, the leader of the opposition had an issue with it, because if we stuck to the numbers, he's put, hear me before you comment, he would be speaking 6 deep before the Prime Minister speaks, which is where, incidentally, the leader of the opposition used to speak when he was the leader of the opposition, behind 6 PLP cabinet ministers. We have changed that, Mr. Speaker, in this parliament, we have allowed the leader of the opposition, typically, usually what happens is I speak, the member for Carmichael speaks, and the member for St. Anne's are the only 3 members who have spoken after the leader of the opposition in this parliament before the Prime Minister speaks. If we go according to the current list, Mr. Speaker, the member for Engliston speaks about cabinet ministers having spoken before her. 5 cabinet ministers has spoken before her. 7 cabinet ministers will speak between her and the leader of the opposition. If we go according to just mere members speaking, 8 members of the opposition have spoken before her. Of the government has spoken before her. 14 members of the government speaks between her and the leader of the opposition. But in between there, Mr. Speaker, we have an independent who had an issue. Mr. Vaughan Miller. So he speaks after 7 members of the opposition speaks, after the member would have spoken of the government. So in any event, Mr. Speaker, this list is quite fair when it comes to proportionality. The only issue, Mr. Speaker, we decided that this debate will end. This debate will end, Mr. Speaker, this debate will end on Wednesday. And so far, right now, only 2 persons are going to speak after the leader of the opposition. 1 cabinet minister, the member for Carmichael, the Honorable Desmond Bannister, and the member for St. Anne's. That's it, Mr. Speaker. The member for Engliston in this lineup is next.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for
I think
Angleton.
that I was the subject of so much discussion by the member opposite about what has been the practice. The practice has been, and I think the member has conceded that, not that this member had 8 speakers before her, but that there would be a ratio between each opposition speaker. Along those numbers, we've now had, I would be the 3rd speaker with that number of speakers. In fact, the member for Mangrove Key and Andros spoke 1 speaker after our lead speaker. And so I understand what they're doing, and I'm prepared to speak just in case anyone has a concern about that. But I want it highlighted, Mr. Speaker, that this administration is strategically securing a lineup which does not allow for accountability by the members of the opposition.
Honorable member for Angleton.
Yes.
You are in breach of the rules now.
And what is the breach rule?
The breach is you are imputing improper motives to members. and that is a breach of the rules.
All right, no problem, Mr. Speaker. I understand. Can I get the please?
So,
No, Speaker,
honorable members,
you don't, point of order of what? I'm about to speak.
honorable members, honorable members. A member for Angleston, are you prepared to speak now?
Yes, I'm going to speak.
Okay, the chair recognizes the honorable member for
Thank you.
Angleston.
Speaker, I just want.
Honorable member for East Grand Bahama, make your point of order.
So you're chastising now, eh? No problem.
No, I ain't chastising nobody. Mr. Speaker, it's just a simple matter. I did not want the member to leave on the record that somehow this administration is strategically trying to disadvantage the opposition. That is not the case, Mr. Speaker. And the member would have the public believe that what the lineup of speakers is somehow goes against the tradition or get the practice. And Mr. Speaker, the member may forget that at least two of us were on that side of the House in the last administration. And we complained about this exact same issue, Mr. Speaker. And consistently, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member.
you would have a day, not just a couple of speeches, but a day of the government berating and beating down the opposition after every opposition member has spoken. So she is in no position, Mr. Speaker, to lecture this House about process and about fairness. No position. And I think I just want to make that so the public does not believe that there's something untoward going on here.
Thank you, honorable member. Let me make a ruling before you proceed, Angleston. The chair.
On the form administration.
The chair is of the view. Honorable members, the chair is satisfied based on what has been presented that this list that I have before me is an agreed list between the leader of government business and the leader of opposition business in the parliament. I haven't heard anything to convince me otherwise. And so the chair now calls on the honorable member for Angleston to make our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, budget debates, it is encouraged that we hear from ministers so that the Bahamian people hear from the ministers and that the members of the opposition are able to test. This is their debate.
Honorable member.
I am speaking about a budget debate.
The chair has already made a ruling with respect to the list.
Yes, you talk about the list. I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about the procedures in a budget debate. I'm making my contribution. And so we now know that they have managed this process in such a way, it's not the amount of ministers that the member has said. In fact, I counted 5 or 6. It's not the 7 or 8 that he says, unless some spoke who I don't know about. And there are about 8 afterwards. The bulk of the cabinet has yet to present in this parliament, and we are now three members through in a 4-member opposition. And so the Bahamian people must take note as they go and they dominate with their one-dimensional diatribe in this parliament. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of the good people of Angleston, and I want to begin by paying tribute to the late Edward Bobby Clinton, who was laid to rest on Friday past. And he was the former member in this House for the constituency of South Beach. And he was an incredible pioneer in the labor movement and was responsible for so many significant landmark achievements, chief of which was bringing a focus to the well-being and welfare of workers through the formation of a credit union and a pension plan. And I believe he was responsible for introducing agency shop. And his contribution is indeed pivotal in the journey for labor in this country. And he was laid to rest on Friday, and his passing marks really the end of an era of someone who contributed so greatly in this country to the labor movement. I also wanted to begin to also take the opportunity to celebrate and congratulate Buddy Hield, that young man out of 8 Mile Rock, who they said at one point was so impoverished. He was so impoverished that he could not afford the jersey and the pants, and they had to be donated to him. And he's just turned out to be just an outstanding, sparkling, amazing young man, not just for his incredible talent, but for the management of his personal space and his patriotism and his humility. And so we are very proud of him in this country. And he is emblematic of this wealth of talent that this Bahamas is producing from generation to generation in just large numbers. And we're so proud of him. I contribute to this debate, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the people of Angleton. And I'm privileged to represent these fine people. In this debate and in this House in general, they expect me to raise my voice on their behalf. They expect that. They do not expect me to simply uphold the status quo in this Parliament. They expect, the people of Angleton expect that I will speak for implementation of equitable policies which bring hope to their lives and a qualitative future for their children. That they expect that of me. The good people of Angleton demand that I vigorously reject and fearlessly expose a status quo which has marginalized their communities and which has institutionalized inequity in this country. The people of Angleton have not sent me here to join some politically correct bandwagon. And who expected that in here? I'm sorry. The people of Angleton have not sent me here to join some politically correct bandwagon. They have mandated me to challenge a mainstream political narrative that seeks to coerce and rationalize an acceptance of this status quo. So you could make all the arguments you want about what you say is correct. The people of Angleton have told me something different. They expect me to expose the perpetrators who, by their language and their subtle attacks, seek to name and shame their communities, whose plight is the sum total, not of this member or any other member who represents similar communities, but their plight is the sum total of governmental policies which have failed to bring progress, reform, and restoration to those communities. The people of Angleton do not want to hear big shot politicians in this House play politics with their conditions or their suffering. Particularly not from an administration which has purposefully chosen to prioritize the interests of the wealthy over and above and all else at the expense of the poor in this country. I recall when I made a contribution in here where I suggested that the cap at $50,000 for real property tax should be reviewed so the very wealthy landowners in Lyford Keep should pay a more proportionate tax. And the member for East Grand Bahama, who's now left the House just now, or left the precincts chamber, made some argument that, and I'm trying to summarize it, I have the article, where he says, you can't tax the rich too much because it will hurt the poor. And this is really this is the inverse of progressive tax ideology. But this is what they have told us. This is what he articulated in this Parliament. The people, and that was when the letter, the famous Lyford Key letter was written. And the policy was shifted, reversed. The people of Angleton are pondering deeply that claims of ameliorating the plight of the poor that is being made by this government is being executed through showboat initiatives, isolated to narrow geographical boundaries, which purposefully and strategically excludes them. Remember, when we were talking about the Over the Hill project, initially it was Centerville, Bain and Grantstown, and St. Barnabas. So Angleton was sandwiched in between and excluded. But then they shifted it and said that it would not include St. Barnabas because it was too brazen. too brazen in its articulation. So the people of Angleton, they're not impressed when you say you are fighting this, you are seeking to alleviate poverty in this country, and you have narrowed it to a geographical area with one or two initiatives. The people of Angleton are also very concerned that additionally, this government is about to borrow more than $500 million, 600 and something million dollars, now totaling billions of dollars in governmental borrowing since May of 2017. How much billions it was, Exuma? $3 billion in borrowing since May of 2017. And they are very concerned because there is no qualitative thing the people of Angleton can point to that enhances their quality of life. And they got to pay it back. They are taxpayers like everyone else. Just like everyone else, just like Carmichael, just like North Eleuthera, just like Elizabeth. They are taxpayers. And they have been further burdened by increased taxes that have made their lives extremely hard, with little or no adjustment to the social safety net to compensate for those who are falling between the cracks. When that was introduced, when we served, because we introduced it, this administration increased it by 60% when they said they were opposed to it, when we introduced it. But when it was being introduced, one of the things they told us, and I've said it before in this parliament, they said that the social safety net is to compensate for the hardship that would be caused by a consumer tax to persons at the lower economic, at the end of economic scale, the lower end. That didn't happen. In fact, we had to raise hell in this country, including a former prime minister, when you cut back on school uniforms for children in poverty. And while you may say you haven't cut back, if you've increased taxation by 60%, there should have been a concurrent increase in benefits for people who would have been so hard hit by such a tremendous increase in tax. And the RISE program, the former minister, Melanie Griffin, has spoken about this, but you stopped it. We had lots of arguments in here about it, but the IDB came back afterwards and said you really didn't give it time to be properly tested, and you really wasted $5 million. The IDB said that, not me. But the people of Angleton, Mr. Speaker, are especially angry. It's the principle of the thing. It seems small, but it's the principle that you have now put a price tag, plus VAT, you know, plus VAT. This is so annoying on a plastic bag. You're charging it for it, and you're putting tax on it. Because you seem to assume, from what I've heard, the rationale, that the people of Angleton and others are children and need to be punished into obedience. So if they have to pay for it, they will learn not to use plastics. This is the rationale I heard coming from the Ministry of the Environment about why they're causing people to have to pay for plastic bags. But then you turn around and put tax on it too. It's the principle of the thing. And people are angry. I call it the straw that broke the camel's back. And you know, the people of Angleton are upset because I can't get derelict vehicles moved. I've raised it in this parliament over and over. There's a process for moving derelict vehicles. You can't just move a vehicle. Because if that's what you want to do, if that could have happened, I would have done that. But you have to mark it. You have to give time. There's a whole legal process that is executed by the Ministry of the Environment. I raised it in this parliament. The Prime Minister said he was introducing some strategy where they would pay $50 to homeowners to move vehicles out of their yards, etc. Well, that has not happened. My sidewalks, still waiting for the sidewalk. The member for Carmichael is here. The sidewalk from E.P. Roberts on Lincoln Boulevard, where all those children walk, it is seriously deteriorated. the government building the rental units. I had to use constituency funding to fix the roof because I couldn't get it done. I wrote this one, the next one, the next one. When it rains, it's pouring into people's homes. I went into the house. I mean, the mold in there is, oh my, I felt terrible that people are living like that. But I couldn't get it done. And so we had to use constituency funds. State of the roads. I know we have roads everywhere, but I throw in there the state of the roads. And I'm asking the Minister of Works to work with me because I want to undertake a number of strategies in Angleston, and I'm trusting that I will be more successful than I've been to date in getting these things done. Okay. Unless you want to put on the record that you agree.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Carmichael.
Speaker, I continue to say in this place that I'm here to serve the Bahamian people, whether that is the government MPs, through the government MPs, or the opposition MPs. The member for Angleston has asked me about sidewalk, a particular sidewalk in Angleston, and I've given directives on that some time ago. I know that she's been in touch with the director, and now I will find out today why that hasn't been done, because that should have been done. With respect to the roads, our people have done an admirable job on Coconut Grove Avenue and a number of roads there. But as with all of my colleagues, and I say this for all of my colleagues, and I continue to say to ministers, if there are roads in your constituency that need work, please send a communication to me. And Mr. Speaker, I know you're looking at me and because you have a particular road, and I don't want to take up Angleston's time, but I think this is important. I know that you are looking at me because you are taking a particular, you are concerned about a particular road. That road that you're concerned about requires the Water and Sewage Corporation to invest almost $500,000 in their works before I can pave it. And we are seeking to get them to do that. And that's why your road has been paved. But where colleagues ask me to get roads paved, Exuma, you just wait. I can talk about you soon. All right, be patient. But colleagues such, I know you have your mold, Cat Island. I know you have your mold, but I don't want to take up Angleston. I don't want to take up Angleston's time. Speaker, I don't want to take up too much of Angleston's time, but I say for my colleagues like Angliston, I'm here to serve the country. Please send me the list of the roads that need to be paved, and as we can get them done, we're going to do the best we can. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, I think the point I'm making, you can well understand the frustration of people of Angleston. Starting from the Over the Hill project, can't get nothing done, no matter how much time you ask and press, and the taxpayers. And, so, you can understand their frustration. The people of Angleston, Mr. Speaker, and Bahamians in general, including all of our constituents, yours too, are facing stressful encounters. They are facing stressful encounters at the cash register when purchasing food for their families. I can tell you that that is one experience that is very, very hard on the average person in this country. It's a basic necessity of life. But under the watch of this government, we are seeing the highest cost of living in the history of this country. Now, bear in mind now, I just said we borrowed $3 billion. People of Angleston say they can't see anything that they benefit from. They don't see it. And they're saying, furthermore, they can't get nothing done. And then they go to buy bread at the food store, and it becomes almost a traumatic, stressful experience because the cost of living has escalated. $100 it's shocking what $100 will do at the food store. And particularly people who are minimum wage workers, $210, $220, many work for government at that rate. And they are the ones who are forced to need housing, feed their children, get transport, and on with $210. And as wages have remained stagnant. I heard the Prime Minister said he's going to look at the increase of minimum wage for government workers. But this has to be looked at for workers across the board. And I know it requires dialogue, and I'm going to get to that in a minute about small and medium enterprises and the support that government can give. But then we look at the tax burdens that have been increased on the Bahamian people. For whatever, honestly, I have to be honest with you. I do not know what you're doing with the money. I just don't. And I'm not saying where's the VAT money going. I'm just saying I can't see it. I don't know. Every time you come, you want to borrow. And I'm trying to figure, and then you keep saying the PLP did something. It been there 3 years. At some point, it ain't the PLP no more. You're borrowing all this money, and we don't know. I'm puzzled. I am puzzled as to what is happening with the money because you cannot see it anywhere. But yet, you turn around after putting this burden on the Bahamian people and then increase benefits to yourselves, generously enhance travel benefits at public expense and for yourselves and your spouses. I don't begrudge it, but I'm saying, how could you put pressure on us and then say some advancement or increase for you is justified? The people of Angleston and Bahamians throughout this country are unfortunately facing terrible prospects at our hospitals. And I heard the member for Elizabeth, and we look forward to it. And I read today they're going to bring another 20-something beds on, which is going to help alleviate the situation in A&E. But $3 billion later, this is what's happening at our hospital. And we are, and I don't criticize the best efforts of the embattled professionals because they're working in these conditions. And it's difficult. Life has been made harder for our people. And many have very likely been pushed below the poverty line long before Hurricane Dorian. Meanwhile, and perhaps not unexpectedly, we are seeing a social deterioration, especially in crime and violence. And these days, particularly in the security of our homes, both outside and inside, with violent home invasions, and we've even had cases of rape. When the minister tells people not to be alarmed, it suggests a total disconnect from the reality of our people. I'm alarmed. I don't know anyone else who's living in their house, but to say do not be alarmed with the frequency that we are seeing in this country, including people just outside their homes, getting out their vehicles, people inside their homes. Broad daylight. And then, Mr. Speaker, we look at the energy company in this country. All of this is, I'm talking about $3 billion that's being borrowed. We look at the energy company and the 3 years of haywireness at that company. And I could go list, and I don't want to go through it. It's a long list of all kinds of things happening there. And you can't blame that on the prior administration. I know we keep hearing it's the prior, it's the PLP, it's the PLP, it's the PLP, but these things I'm talking about ain't got nothing to do with the PLP. This has happened under the watch of this administration. You want to speak when your time comes? Okay. No, don't ask. And then you look at the immigration laws, which have marginalized Bahamian workers. If you think, Port Charlotte, that the Bahamian people will hear you talk about the PLP when you are responsible, go right ahead. So, Mr. Speaker, the immigration laws brought to this parliament in the last 3 years, the Commercial Enterprises Act, which now prioritizes foreign labor in those select industries. I never thought I'd see that day in this country that happened here. And then, I see Bamboo Town is here, but the Road Traffic Department. What's happening in the Road Traffic Department? Millions invested to automate, to create efficiencies, including the production of plates in the prison.
So what's wrong?
The other day, they said they didn't have plates. And the one reason why the arrangement was struck with the prison is to assure you'd never have a shortage, and also to ensure a secure environment. I'm told that you've taken the plates out of the prison now, that they're being manufactured there, you're storing them somewhere else. And I just wonder, if it's true, I want to warn you that there's a reason why those plates went into a secure environment. The other day, no driver's licenses. And you know, we heard some story about the company in Singapore or whatever it was. Had nothing to do with that. Materials had not been ordered. Sadly, this administration has been an utter failure. Utter failure. And I say sadly. You know why I say sadly? Because we can all pay a price. And we are now faced with the aftermath of this terrible Hurricane Dorian. The anemic response, and I say anemic, and I know it's a big task, but the people, I saw at Queen's Cove today, they saying they've been forgotten in Queen's Cove. You get a sense that you don't quite know what to do, you're overwhelmed. And this only serves to exacerbate our fears. More and more Bahamian people are solemnly crying out, Lord, help us. This administration came on the scene with arrogance and bravado, and you did. I remember the first budget speech. Pointing fingers, making scandalous accusations, many of which was proved to be untrue. And I don't want to go through the 42 million story again, the waffling of the Minister of Finance. You claimed that this administration claimed it was the people's time. What a grandiose assertion for what we are seeing right now in this country. We know that what transpired was nothing more than empty promises and a trailer load of lies. You seek to claim glory when none exists. You refuse to accept responsibility for your failings, which are many. I've never seen this. You gotta bite the bullet, you gotta fall on your sword sometimes. I've done it over and over in this parliament when I served as minister. For example, most recently, the Nassau Flight Services. It was being privatized. But then we heard it was a failed effort. But how was it explained? No explanation. What the minister said was that it was the former administration and this minister who caused Nassau Flight Service to be in some state. He had a policy that he went through an RFP that somehow they're praising everyone who participated, but somehow nothing's happening, but the minister will not explain to the Bahamian people. But it's me. It's me and the PLP. Seeking to claim glory when none exists and refusing to accept responsibility for failings when they occur. No real explanation has been given for the abrupt about face. I say things that make you go, And I just want to say, I'm not going to respond to what the minister did when he pointed a finger at me. And I would only say this to him. Do not open that can of worms. So I want to encourage, take your blows instead of shirking responsibility and accountability. Your script is repetitive. After 3 years, and we're now going to the fourth budget, it's still the PLP. And remember, Port Charlotte say, well, when is it going to be the PLP? Well, it's not the PLP, it's the F&M. You're the government. You in charge. And sometimes even going back to the 1980s to make a rationale. This is ludicrous. Substandard, below par performance. I remember in the first budget, hurricanes, I remember a big argument with East Grand Bahama. When the Ministry of Finance, who wrote that budget, they said it was the hurricanes. But the minister minimized that. So when we were government, the hurricanes didn't matter. Joaquin, which destroyed the southern Bahamas. Matthew, which hit New Providence, Yellow Elder, South Beach, and all over. And Grand Bahama, didn't matter. But now hurricanes explain everything. North Andros. With all of their finger pointing of audits and blacklistings, remember that in the downgrades? They point about how we had this and you had a downgrade. You had three downgrades, you're a downgrade crew. You're the junk bond status people. Remember that? Yeah. Look at where we are now. And they're at the helm now. We see all these same events recurring. And sometimes, in some instances, exceeding any prior administration. in terms of blacklistings and all that. You didn't see us celebrate over here. I can excuse failure if it's accompanied by character and integrity. I don't have a problem with that because we're human. But this administration has sought to engage in manipulations, conflicts of interest, inconsistencies on matters of alleged principles, iffy policy priorities, flip-flopping, blatant untruths, outright hypocrisies, and our country has not progressed. You get an F for failure of the Bahamian people. But you give yourselves an A. Why? Because the foreign ratings agencies say you've been very good for your slavish obedience to their mandate. Lord help us. I'm hearing that they don't vote. That's a very good point. They don't vote. But you know, we are your people. We are your people. Angleton is your people. The economic policies touted for the small and medium, micro, small and medium enterprises, the funding that the minister touts, and we agree, it's a good thing. But I believe that more should be done to support and supplement the sustainability of small and medium enterprises. Not just give funding, but more support, particularly after hurricanes or during recessions or whatever it is, energy hikes, whatever the issues are, to support small and medium enterprises. Because like the minister says, and we agree, it's the true engine of any economy. So it's not enough just to say we're giving money to people for businesses. We need to see greater support to make them more sustainable and across the board, not just the ones that are part of that program. And then, you know, I see my time is winding down. I'm sure the speaker will be kind enough to me as he was to Long Island. But Prince George Dock, owned by the Bahamian people, 5th busiest port in the world. This administration entered into a lease arrangement for a sum total of 55 years, which is really, none of us would be alive. They have actually divested this port out of our lifetime. And where's the heads of agreement?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown on a point of order.
The member is being erroneous. The lease is for 25 years. And if the government of the Bahamas decides that it doesn't want to renew that lease as it approaches the 25th year, it can say so. And then there's a 2-year winding down period. And it says here, the parties acknowledge that the winding down extension is necessary and essential to allow for the orderly closure and/or transfer of operations at the port to the government of the Bahamas. So this is at most 27 years, at most. The commercial port of Nassau is 45 years. The people who are managing the airport will right now be there for 22 years. So this is within the realm of normalcy. This is within, I don't know where you get 55 years from, but.
The member.
And we haven't, we have not divested. Or the port
the member.
of Prince George Dock will always be owned by the people of the Bahamas.
Yeah, right. Look at the champions for the Bahamian people talking about that port. It's a 25-year lease with a 15-year extension.
That's not automatic. It's not automatic.
With a 15-year.
It's not automatic.
It's not automatic with this company, but it's automatic in the agreement. Yes, it is. It's an automatic principle. It's automatic.
Has the right to cancel.
Mr. Speaker, this manifest, and they knew what they were doing. They knew if it was 25 years, say 25 years. Why you put 2 15-year renewals in there? Why you did that? Why did you do 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 that with our port? Mr. Speaker, I'm one of you. Why did Why did this government, if they said it's 25 years, why did they put 2 15-year renewals in there? Why did they do that? And you know what else I want to know why? First of all, they haven't laid it. Why haven't you laid it? That's our port, not yours. Why haven't you laid the heads of agreement?
Yeah.
Put it on the table for the Bahamian people to see. How dare you? 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 Speaker. It was not laid. The speaker already said it was not laid.
It was laid.
No, you have not. You've not.
It was not eligible.
You were right here when the speaker said it was not laid. So don't try to rehash that. Listen, man, we're big boys and girls here. Don't try that here.
Listen,
It was eligible.
Sir.
you're saying,
You dealt with it, Mr. Speaker.
I believe the document that was laid, it was the only question was,
No. You said it was not laid, Mr. Speaker. You check the record. We can't. We can get the hands up, Mr. Speaker.
okay.
Yes, I think we should.
Can you give me a date?
I'll get the date. Your staff can help you, Speaker. You determined was not laid. Furthermore, what was shown in here, circulated, incomplete, illegible, and I am saying lay the heads of agreement for our port in this parliament. You do not have the right to give that away for 55 years. And Speaker, while I'm at it, and I'm craving your indulgence, Mr. Speaker, this lease agreement, from what I did see, and it was very difficult reading it, it gives this company, this foreign Turkish company, 49% shareholding, along with 49% shareholding with something called the Bahamas Investment Fund, and 2% for yes, of there's something called YES.
Honorable Member, you're seeking an extension?
Yes, yes, please.
3 minutes.
Can I have the same amount of time that was given to Long Island?
That's what I gave Long Island.
I know, but he took much more, with your indulgence.
I'm giving,
He had much more than that. Speaker, whatever you say.
I'm giving my discretion to give
Thank
you
you.
3 minutes.
Okay.
At
Thank
the,
you,
at
Speaker.
the end of 3 minutes, if you are,
Thank you. I understand.
well, that's the same privilege that I gave the member for Long Island.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. They've given this company the right to all revenues, rents, passenger facility charge, port facility charge, service charges.
All that?
All. They get all of it. And they pay to the Bahamian people, the government, 50 cents a head, with no clause for review over the 25-year period, although there is a clause of review for the foreign company to increase the fees and a certain procedure for that, but not the Bahamian people. 50 cents a head and $2 million initially, and then 2.5 million. That's it. That's it. Plus, the Bahamian government has to do the dredging, which will take us into millions and millions and millions of infrastructural works. And the financing, they've also given this company most favored nation status. That means that they will get the same concessions and benefits that of cruise port facilities in underdeveloped places like Keys and Islands. And we know Grand Bahama is about to come, so they'll get that too. This is the 5th busiest port in the world, you know. There's no good reason, after you don't give them everything, no good reason for you to put that in there. But you've given them that too. Plus, you have exempted real property tax for 10 years, and then I believe another 10 years. You've deferred VAT in construction material for the duration of the term. No clause in there as to what the Bahamian people will get back at the end of that anticipated 55-year period. The seabed lease should have been recorded 2 days after the signing. Was it done?
Did you recognize the honorable member for Centerville on a point of order?
Like clarification on the most favored nation status, and I think the member for Angleton would have said that the company would have gotten this, or I just want to know if a company can get most favored nation status and where and how does that apply? Thank you.
Yeah, how it would work is that whatever any other company gets with 600,000 passengers or more, that they would be entitled to the same concession. So you might go on a Grand Bahama, which is being devastated, and say, I have to incentivize Carnival specially to go in there. You might say that. You now told the people here in Nassau, the fifth busiest port, they can get that too. Bear in mind, I said 50 cents and 2.5 million. And they keep everything. They keep everything. And the agreement allows them to put a financial charge on the Prince George dock. The lender is allowed to take charges on the port and or the lease. And the question is too, what is the port? What's the port area? You raised this question before, Senator. What is the port area? And that's what we don't know because we haven't seen it, but we got to watch that because I'm hearing about the Churchill building. Giving the country away, man. This is so regressive. You're giving, and then the member for Freetown will tell you, you could buy shares. They're telling every little individual person, you could buy a share. You could buy shares. No, but I'm saying you're giving away to these people the wealth and the bounty of our people, and you tell me I could buy a share? You really underestimate the intelligence of Bahamian people. Speaker, I want to close by just my last paragraph. The last part. I'm skipping through so I can get straight to it, Speaker. And I want to end by this. All of the data suggests that our only hope for survival is not the great white hope of foreign direct investment, but rather to invest in the ingenuity of the Bahamian people, and especially the Bahamian children. But some of our children are hungry tonight, and there is no effective social safety net for them. Many will not reach their true potential under the current system. You hear what I say? What is the government's plan to empower them? Does the budget reflect this urgent reality? Does this government truly believe in the Bahamian people? And I end by saying there is nothing. It's just this old dusty script being inexpertly executed to our detriment. The people of Angleton are disturbed and concerned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable members, I've had the opportunity to review the documents tabled by the Honourable Member for Long Island. And there are a number of attachments, and those attachments are letters that were attached to email communications. I'm satisfied that the documents tabled, without, of course, having seen any substantive application that is before the Supreme Court, with respect to the injunction that is scheduled to be heard next week in the inter-parties hearing. I'm satisfied that what has been tabled would not prejudice that application. As many, the chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of the great people of Freetown to support this midterm budget. Mr. Speaker, I continue to be honored and humbled to represent the people of Freetown in this parliament. I want them to know that everything I do as Minister of Tourism and Aviation
is with them in mind. I know that they want employment opportunities that provide a livable wage, a safe neighborhood, improving infrastructure, a decent home, and educational opportunities for their kids. Freetown, I hear you. My speech today is directed at you. As the Minister of Tourism, I have responsibility for our #1 industry, the industry that generates 50% of our GDP, over 50% of our GDP, and employs 2 out of every 3 Bahamians. Freetown, get ready. There are many jobs coming on stream in our tourism sector. Let me help you to prepare to take advantage of these employment opportunities by assisting with resume preparation, online applications, interviewing skills, and any additional skills training that may make you more attractive to a prospective employer. In addition, I continue to hold informative, regular constituency meetings, updating you on what is happening in your constituency and in the country at large. It was the week before last that I had the Minister of Works provide a dynamic update on infrastructure developments in Freetown. The meeting was extremely well attended, and the chairman of Beaches and Parks, the member for St. Barnabas, and the chairman of the Road Traffic Department, the member for South Eleuthera, were also in attendance. I publicly thank them all for their assistance to the constituents of Freetown. Exciting plans are in motion for the construction of a new community center in Freetown, right next to the Ann Towns Clinic. Widespread consultation on the layout of this community center has been sought, and it will provide an excellent venue for community meetings, a computer room for kids to do homework, and a recreational room to exercise and improve our health. I want to thank the St. Matthew's Church family for putting on yet another wonderful church fair Saturday past. The venue in the parking lot of the beach soccer stadium was amazing. And of course, the food, the soursop ice cream, the cultural and musical performance, and the non-stop fellowshipping made for an awesome event in Freetown. Mr. Speaker, so much exciting news. I didn't see you though. Where were you? Oh. Mr. Speaker, so much exciting news from Freetown, but with this short speaking timetable, I will address these more in depth in my annual budget address sometime in June. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to tourism. Mr. Speaker, this year, 2020, began with awesome news in tourism. For the first time in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, in 2019, the number of foreign visitors coming to our beautiful and culturally rich and dynamic country exceeded a record-breaking 7.2 million visitors. Never in the history of our country have so many people booked a vacation that included the Bahamas. In 2018, a record-breaking 6.6 million tourists came to the Bahamas. That was the first record of this F&M government. And then in 2019, we blew through that number and recorded a whopping 7.2 million tourists, making that the second record of this F&M government. Mr. Speaker, in tourism, we are achieving record after record, award after award, accolade after accolade. Many of my fellow Bahamians are coming up to me and hailing me as the 7 million tourist man, indicating to me, Mr. Speaker, that this country's success in tourism is resonating far and wide. Mr. Speaker, back in August 2019, at the Free National Movement's Youth Convention, I predicted that we might achieve this 7 million tourist milestone, not knowing then that Hurricane Dorian would soon be upon us. What is so amazing to me, Mr. Speaker, is that we were able to achieve this 7 million tourist record during what has been clearly the most challenging year we as a country have ever endured. Mr. Speaker, some complain that they cannot feel any economic impact from all of these tourists. But everywhere I go, I hear otherwise. When at restaurants, I ask the Bahamian employee, how things? Often the reply is, great. We are more busy money making. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you how more tourists positively impact this economy. More tourists mean more pay in the form of more days' work and more gratuities earned for hotel workers. More tourists means more taxi rides and thus greater pay for taxi operators. More tourists means more shopping in Bahamian stores by the droves of tourists coming off all of the cruise ships. More tourists means more excursions with Bahamian businesses. More tourists means, most importantly, more jobs for ordinary Bahamians, since with the increased numbers of tourists, employers in the tourism industry need more workers to accommodate the crowd. More tourists means more money in the hands of ordinary Bahamian people who are now in the hotel business by offering a spare room in their home to tourists through online booking engines like Airbnb. More tourists means more money on the ground, more VAT and departure taxes in the coffers of government, and thus more money for education, healthcare, social services, and Ministry of Works projects. So if anyone tells you more tourists don't mean more money in the pockets of Bahamians, then tell them the devil is a liar. Mr. Speaker, I agree. We must always strive to get the tourists to spend more when they get here. That has been a vexing problem. We must become more aggressive, more innovative, more entrepreneurial to create more businesses to convince our 7.2 million tourists to leave more of their money here in the Bahamas when they come. We must crack this nut. And with the launch of the Small Business Development Center and the Tourism Development Corporation, real, meaningful steps are finally being taken to connect our domestic economy to our tourism sector to yield greater dividends for the Bahamian people. And despite all the negativity from the side opposite, the new projects in the tourism sector keep lining up to propel our visitor arrivals upward and onward and create meaningful job opportunities for Bahamians. Carnival Cruise Lines is of course, building their new 329-acre cruise port in Grand Bahama. It started off at 100 million, Mr. Speaker. Just last week, they said it will now be closer to 200 million. Employ 1,000 Bahamians doing construction and 500 to 1,000 Bahamians post-construction. Carnival claims that this Grand Port project will jumpstart the Grand Bahama economy and reintroduce Grand Bahama as one of the Caribbean's premier cruise ports and tourism destinations. Groundbreaking is expected in May, June of this year. Mr. Speaker, early next month, God willing, the government of Bahamas will sign a new heads of agreement to announce the sale and complete redevelopment of the Grand Lucayan property, along with the construction of a new, even bigger cruise port in Freeport Harbor by Royal Caribbean and the ITM Group. That project, too, will call for expenditure of hundreds of millions of dollars and create thousands, yes, Mr. Speaker, thousands of new jobs for Bahamians in Grand Bahama. Details on this exciting project will be forthcoming at the signing. And so, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I am excited, Mr. Speaker, very excited. Mr. Speaker, the good news continues to roll in. Bahama is right now undergoing a $300 million expansion, which includes the construction of a new 15-acre water park, a fabulous new beachfront restaurant, additional pools, a brand new extended pier of Cable Beach, major developments on Long Key, where Coral World used to be, and major upgrades and refurbishment to the Malia Hotel, which is also owned by Bahama. This $300 million project will create 500 new direct jobs and 1,000 indirect jobs. Just last week, Mr. Speaker, the government signed a heads of agreement with a group known as the Tyros Family Holdings Limited for a $300 million residential resort and marina in South Abaco. This proposed high-end, low-density boutique development represents one of the largest ever in Abaco and is a much-needed boost for an economy devastated by Hurricane Dorian. 600 construction jobs will be created, and another 600 full-time jobs are anticipated once the project is completed. 2 hotels, one with 50 rooms and one with 75 rooms, along with a 136-slip marina designed for mega yachts, are to be constructed, as well as an 18-hole full-size golf course and a marina village offering shopping, dining experiences, bars, and entertainment. In addition, the Sandyport Airport will undergo a complete transformation involving the extension of the runway and the construction of a new terminal to accommodate private jets and the like. And we must not forget, Mr. Speaker, the proposed $250 million redevelopment of the cruise port at the Prince George Dock. Mr. Speaker, this project is probably one of the most important tourism-related projects to be negotiated by the government of the Bahamas for over a decade. Over the next 2 years, Nassau Cruise Port Limited will use that $250 million transforming, upgrading, redeveloping, refreshing, and bringing focused and professional and experienced management to the most trafficked gateway into our country, located at the Prince George Wharf. In 2019, 3.8 million cruise passengers arrived in Nassau, up from 3.6 million in 2018. That equates to 10,400 tourists every single day of the year. And despite the relentless opposition by the member for Eglinton to this project for her usual anti-oil investment stand, this project is being well received by the stakeholders on the ground who are being...
Honorable member.
Oh, sorry.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Anderson on a point of order.
I don't want the member to put words in my mouth or to seek to color what I say. What I said was that what they have done is the biggest giveaway in the history of this country. They've ripped off the Bahamian people. That's what I said. I didn't say anything about investments. I said, you have negotiated the biggest ripoff in the history of this country. That's what I said.
Boy, Cat Island, when you form your, if, God forbid, you get to form a cabinet, make sure you don't put it in the cabinet, yeah? Because when it comes to investments, it'll never get approved. Okay. Just make sure you don't do that, okay?
Honorable members. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Anderson on a point of order.
Speaker, the member has been in the, I've been in the cabinet twice, and so I don't need him to say what it is that I stand for, I don't stand for. It's public knowledge. I said, you gave away our port for 55 years, and we got peanuts, and you want to sell me shares. That's what I said.
I wish the member would stop misleading the Bahamian people by saying that, first of all, we're giving it away the port. The Bahamas will always own that port. They will always.
Point of order, Speaker.
Please, let me finish.
Honorable members.
Please.
So he said I misled.
I didn't interrupt you that much.
No, you said I misled the Parliament.
Yeah. So the deal calls for 25 years, and if the government of the Bahamas decides that it doesn't want to renew and it wants its port back, it can get it back with a 2-year winding down period. So at most, Mr. Speaker, at most, it's 27. So yes, there are options to renew, but they're not automatic options. They have to be negotiated. So if they don't happen at the government of the day, I'll be, 80 something and you'll be 90 something. So it'll be.
Free down. Member for Eglinton on a point of order.
People accuse me of misleading the Parliament. When I say that they've given it away, 55 years, none of us will be alive. You've gotten little or nothing in return. You're allowing them to get financing on the facility, put a charge on our port. They're going to put a charge on our port. That's when I say you've given it away. You've given it away. No, you're not getting anything. You're 50 cents ahead.
The crazy thing is we're not making any money right now. You know how much we're getting from that port? We're only getting $2.5 million a year now from that port.
And that's
it. That's what we're getting. That's all we're getting. And they get paid.
That's all you get now?
Yeah, that's all we're getting. We can make the VAT. We can get the VAT off the passenger facility charge. We can get all the new... Anyway, you stay there. Peanuts, you stay there. Yes.
You had an opportunity to put your flag. Why didn't you put your flag?
This project,
Honorable members.
this project is being very well received by the stakeholders on the ground. The taxi cab drivers, the vendors, they are excited about the redevelopment that is going to be done. Finally, something is being done to improve the less than acceptable state of affairs that have existed at the Prince George Dock for years and years. Mr. Speaker, you cannot have all the cruise companies announce and build all of their new ports around the Bahamas, and we do nothing about our premier gateway, the one that directly impacts the most Bahamians every day. No, sir. And the beautiful thing about this project is it will not cost the Bahamian taxpayer 1 cent, not a cent, no, since it will ultimately be paid for by the tourists who use it. Continuing to cost the Bahamian people, the tourists can pay. Continuing on with the tourism project in the pipeline, Mr. Speaker, we must not forget the proposed $400 million Disney project in South Eleuthera, which is close to commencing construction. This project calls for 120 jobs doing construction and 150 well-paying permanent jobs once completed in an area of Eleuthera that is hungry for employment opportunities. Add to all these projects, Mr. Speaker, the imminent opening in May 2020 of the 250-room Margarita Hotel, with 24,000 square feet of retail and entertainment space here at the Point, right next to the Hilton British Colonial, which calls for another 500 new jobs. Add to all these projects, Mr. Speaker, the construction of a brand new beach club in Bimini to accommodate Virgin Cruises' brand new cruise ship, which will begin making calls to that island in April, and the creation of another 150 new jobs. Add to these projects, Mr. Speaker, the ongoing construction of the 120 million Goldwyn Hotel and Residences on West Bay Street across from the office of the Prime Minister, which is anticipated to create 350 jobs in construction and another 150 permanent jobs. Add to all these projects, Mr. Speaker, the ongoing construction of the 250 million Hurricane Hole project on Paradise Island by the Sterling Group and its anticipated creation of 500 construction jobs and 500 full-time and part-time jobs upon completion. And the list goes on and on and on, Mr. Speaker. The continued development of high-end homes and condos at Albany, the recently announced widespread refurbishment of the huge Atlantis Hotel on Paradise Island, the complete redevelopment of the Life at Key Club out west, the completion of an entirely new hotel development. Where's that, Andres? The completion of an entirely new hotel development at the long-abandoned Emerald Palm Hotel site in South Antros, a new boutique high-end hotel plan near Governor's Harbor, a new hotel marina at Harbor Island, the recent opening of the Royal Caribbean's private island on Coco Key, the recent opening of MSC Cruises' private island on Ocean Key. Mr. Speaker, as you can see, tourism continues to be the engine that drives this economy. And despite what the opposition might say, people ain't feeling it on the ground. Tourism-related projects abound, and employment prospects in the tourism sector remain robust. So many projects are either in the pipeline or about to come on stream or recently came on stream that my constituents in Freetown and Bahamians at large should prepare themselves for all of these employment opportunities emanating from the tourism sector. We're about giving people a hand up, not a handout. Mr. Speaker, Bahamians must prepare themselves for all of these opportunities, including careers with the large cruise companies who are actively recruiting Bahamians to work on their ships. As you know, Mr. Speaker, this F&M government made the University of the Bahamas and BTVI tuition free. That's where some of your tax money gone. That's where it's gone. That's where some of the 60% gone. We don't talk about it enough, Mr. Speaker, but I consider that move to be one of the most far-reaching and transformational moves made by any government of the Bahamas in the 21st century. So,
Honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Englishton. On a point of order.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what the member is saying. I'm wondering whether he's correct in what he's saying.
Honorable member.
Yes, I always.
A point of order.
Yes, a point of order, because I don't believe what the member is saying is correct, because there was when you meet a certain qualification, University of Bahamas was free, and it's the same thing now. That the qualification might have been reduced somewhat, but it's the same principle. When you met the certain qualification, you got a scholarship, free, long before the member of Freetown came in this parliament. So I'm wondering whether, is he saying every single person who applies to UB gets free tuition? Because that's not the case.
I'm sure the Minister of Education will opine on that some more, but I'm led to believe that every student that applies to the University of the Bahamas has tuition free once they're accepted. So I encourage as many young persons as possible to enroll in the hospitality and tourism program at UB. Sadly, I'm advised that this is one of the smallest programs at UB, which is most troubling, given that tourism is our #1 industry and offers the most employment opportunities upon graduation. Thankfully, other tourism-related programs, such as the culinary program at UB and the Bahama Host program offered by the Ministry of Tourism, have experienced more robust enrollment, which naturally is quite encouraging. But we must do better. And so I will tour as many high schools as possible to encourage and motivate as many graduating seniors and rising juniors as possible to pursue a rewarding career in tourism. Mr. Speaker, the numbers for 2019 reveal that despite the devastating impact of Hurricane Dorian on our economy, we have an extremely resilient tourism sector. Stopover visitors reached a new record in 2019, coming in at 1.8 million, up from 1.6 million in 2018. And cruise visitors reached a record in 2019, coming in at 5.4 million, up from 5.0 million in 2018. We attribute this historic success to the hard work, dedication, and warm hospitality of Bahamians at all levels of the tourism industry, and to our industry partners who have ensured, especially most recently, that the Bahamas is open for business and still rocking. The diligence of Bahamians and close collaboration of our industry partners, combined with my ministry's laser focus on data-driven, agile marketing, authentic storytelling by Bahamians, and aggressive PR sales and airlift strategies led us to this great triumph in 2019. Mr. Speaker, in the immediate aftermath and months following Hurricane Dorian, my ministry's senior executive team and global communications and sales teams took immediate and effective action and employed every available means of communication to impress upon the media and consumers globally that the islands of the Bahamas were still very much open for business. We moved swiftly to inform the international media of the portions of the Bahamas that had not been impacted by the storm and of the rapid pace of recovery taking place in hurricane-impacted Abaco and Grand Bahama. We recently hosted media and influencers in Abaco and Grand Bahama so they can see firsthand that these islands are well on the road to recovery, highlighting accurately what is open for business and how to get there. My ministry is running digital and social media campaigns specifically for Abaco and Grand Bahama, and we launched dedicated landing pages on Bahamas.com that are updated daily. Mr. Speaker, to ensure continued success, my ministry reworked its budget and allocated another $3 million to begin the first 2 months of 2020 with a robust marketing push behind our Fly Away campaign and key designated marketing areas globally. Our captivating advertising, branding, and content marketing campaigns keep the Bahamas at the top of visitors' minds and inspire them to choose the Bahamas. Global media placements include TV, billboards, major train station takeovers, branded bus wraps, and mall takeovers. Some of you might have seen the double-decker buses in London. Mr. Speaker, almost 70% of all tourists coming to the Bahamas book their vacations online. And even if they don't ultimately book online, an even greater percentage do their research for a warm weather destination online. Mr. Speaker, my ministry therefore understands the importance of technology and innovation through the expansion of our digital footprint, which strengthens our efforts towards increasing our brand reach on a global scale. My team ensures that brand Bahamas is dominant and present at all digital touchpoints that exist today, such as smartphones, desktops, laptops, and tablets. Our incredible advertising campaign using Bahamian rock star Lenny Kravitz and our innovative and successful marketing strategies have won the Ministry of Tourism and the destination a plethora of prestigious international awards and media accolades. How the Ministry of Tourism reacted to Hurricane Dorian, reversing the public relations disaster wrought on this destination by the foreign media, giving the world the impression that the entire Bahamas had been wiped out, has received wide acclaim, and I am particularly proud of Team Tourism for a job well done. Mr. Speaker, our tourism portfolio is a diverse one, encompassing numerous special market segments, meetings and incentives, boating, diving, private aviation, romance, sports. A review of each of these segments shows indication of encouraging positive growth. Driving the expansion of these market segments is a dynamic global sales team that is ramping up the presence of the Bahamas in all those areas by establishing strategic partnerships with elite brands and working in close collaboration with our hoteliers, service operators, and promotion boards. Our meetings, incentive, conferences, and events, or MICE sector, registered a 24% increase over last year to Nassau Paradise Island. This represented some 312,000 room nights, room revenue of approximately $94.7 million, and an average room rate of $304. Mr. Speaker, a major focus of my ministry's thrust is driving tourism business to our islands. The boating, private aviation, and dive markets in particular have proven to be high-performing revenue earners for our out-island communities. To this end, the ministry's global sales team capitalizes on every opportunity to stage an impressive showcase for the Bahamas at the most prestigious boating, air, and dive shows. The sports team work at leveraging the partnerships with the many sporting associations has added to the success of events hosted in the Bahamas. Notably, the 9th annual Atlantis Crown Gymnastics Championship was held in December at the Atlantis Resort. Over the past 9 years, this event has grown from 250 gymnasts to 1,200 gymnasts. Over a 5-day event, the estimated visitor expenditure was $5.5 million, $1 million a day. The Bahamas' Sunshine Marathon, which is in its 11th year, has grown tremendously. It is now recognized among one of the top marathons globally. The estimated tourist expenditure is $2.1 million. Other such events like Optimist North American Salient Championship, Bahamas Hoop Fest, Junkanoo Basketball Jam in Bimini, Bahamas Half Marathon, Tiger Woods and the World Hero Challenge, the Corn Ferry Golf Tournaments in Exuma and Abaco, which we had in Nassau this year, but going back to Abaco next. Makers Warner's Bahamas Bowl, annual Don't Blink Home Run Derby, all deliver hundreds and even thousands of room nights on many of our islands and bring millions of dollars in spend to our country. The romance, wedding, and honeymoon sector ended exceptionally well in 2019, with an increase of over 16% from 164,000 visitors in 2018 to 192,000 in 2019. Mr. Speaker, to underscore the resilience of our destination in the aftermath of Dorian, we have adopted the slogan, the Bahamas are still rocking. We are still rocking in our key markets in North America, the United States and Canada, as well as Europe and Latin America. The UK team recently launched a major brand image campaign takeover of shopping centers, London train stations and underground stations, as well as fully wrapped double-decker buses showing commuters and visitors that our islands are open for business. The campaign is tagged with British Airways, which has since added an additional flight from London, taking the weekly service from 4 flights a week to 5 flights a week. Mr. Speaker, our Canadian markets have responded well to our messaging post-Dorian. Our Canada office conducted a series of trade and media interviews and events called Canada Tour in Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto between September and November 2019. The response was exceptional. About 500 travel agents and more than 90 media attended our media and trade events. We were joined on these missions by our private sector partners, including hotels, promotion boards, and our tour companies. Mr. Speaker, the heightened demand for the Bahamas vacation has resulted in a significant increase in airlift from all of our key markets. Effective March the 7th, about 5 minutes. Effective March the 7th, our destination will be connected to the U.S. West Coast markets via a new United Airlines Saturday-only nonstop Denver to Nassau air service. This is the first time in our history that we have had service that opens up Central and West Coast of America. My team just last week completed a very successful tour to snowy Denver, where the introduction of this new flight has generated great excitement. United Airlines has also added additional weekend nonstop flights from New Jersey to Nassau. Mr. Speaker, in the months following Hurricane Dorian, Grand Bahama has shown remarkable resiliency. Most of the island's hotels are now open. Air and ferry service have been restored. Key tourist attractions and excursions are back in operation. Grand Bahama is open for business and is extending an eager, warm welcome to visitors. With regard to Grand Bahama's hotel room inventory, as of January the 31st, 1,404 of the 1,527 pre-Dorian hotel rooms are now available island-wide. The Grand Bahama International Airport is now welcoming domestic and international scheduled flights. Sunwing, Silver, Bahamas Air, American are all providing international service. New life is being breathed into Grand Bahama's cultural scene. Plans are now well underway to stage the Coconut Festival and the Coke Cracking Festival. Mr. Speaker, many parts of Abaco are still undergoing a massive cleanup, but sectors of the island are now quickly recovering and reopening the tourist market. 20 of the 53 hotels are open in Abaco, providing 424 rooms, and my entire senior executive team is up in Abaco today, touring the hotels to see firsthand what is what, and to marshal the resources of the ministry to assist in getting the word out what is open for business. The Abaco Beach Resort and Marina is scheduled to be fully operational April 1st, with plans to host 4 fishing tournaments within the first few months of reopening. The Leonard Thompson International Airport is fully operational, and Treasure Key, Spanish Key, Sandy Port, and Moores Island strips are open as well. Bahamas Air and Silver Airways resume international service from Florida at the end of December. Mr. Speaker, I now turn very briefly to my aviation part of my portfolio. I'll be done in 6 minutes.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, seeing that the member is going to request another 6 minutes, I do now move that the business of this House continues beyond 1 p.m. so that we can give the member an opportunity to finish his contribution.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do extend beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House will extend beyond the 1 p.m. hour. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Angleton.
Thank you. Speaker, the member misrepresented grossly what the renewal clause of the lease is. Bahamians can read, and we want the agreement laid in this parliament, but what the agreement says, the winding down he speaks of, it says within 6 months of winding down. No, he misled the parliament, the speaker?
No, I'm just trying to determine what you are reading from.
I'm reading from the poor copy that was able to get my hands on. And it says within 6 months of winding down.
Hold on a minute.
The agreement, Mr. Speaker.
All I'm trying to do, honorable member, is to find out whether or not this is the agreement that was illegible, that was tabled, that we wanted a better copy of.
It was not tabled. And that we're checking the Hansard for it.
My recollection was that it was tabled, that it was illegible, and that there were some annex that needed to also be attached. That is my recollection.
I think if you check the Hansard, my recollection was that you found that it had not been laid. It was not in the record. It's not. You checked it, and it was not in the record. But I want to just deal with this point, with the extension, when I talk about the giveaway of our port. Because what the member did not say was that within 6 months of this winding down he speaks about, the government of Bahamas has committed in this agreement to launch a public tender for another 15 years where this very same company will have the right to bid. You have committed to another 30 years in this agreement. No. You have given away our port for 55 years. That's my point. No.
If they bid, that doesn't mean that they're going to get it. I mean, come on, man.
Speaker, the member.
Honorable members.
Speaker, the member misrepresented the terms of this agreement.
Doesn't have to put it out to bid.
And the terms of the agreement allow, it mandates, not allows. No, the agreement mandates another 30 years. I have it here. You want me to read it to you? The agreement binds the Bahamas government. If there's not an agreement, to put it out to public tender, and Global will have the right to tender. Yes. So you have by this agreement given away our port for another 30 years.
Member Feinstein.
Speak the truth.
Honorable member Feinstein.
Let him speak the truth.
Have a seat. Honorable member Feinstein. Based on your own explanation, there is no guarantee that the existing contractor or contracting party to the agreement will have an exclusive right. You have indicated that it will go out to bid, and the contracting party has a right to participate in the bid. Honorable member. Honorable member, resume your seat. Resume your seat. I am honorable member. Honorable member, resume your seat. Honorable member, the chair has the discretion to give its view on any matter that is before this parliament. And no member should be accusing the chair of putting forward a government point of view when I'm simply explaining to you that what you presented to this parliament is not a clear indication, an absolute indication that the contracting party has an exclusive right to. Honorable member, resume your seat. Resume your seat. The chair recognizes the honorable member for free down.
That's what I said.
You can say it all you want, it's not true.
You've given
And
us
yes.
Honorable member,
Don't scream.
honorable member
Yes,
for
yes.
Freetown.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Just a moment, honorable member.
I really
Freetown.
commend
The
your
chair,
patience,
the,
Mr. Speaker.
the chair ruling is that any statement that the government has given away the port for 55 years that is unsubstantiated by the even reasoning of the member is hereby expunged. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the aviation portion of my portfolio. The airport in Marsh Harbor is about to receive over $3 million in remedial works to fix the damage caused by Hurricane Dorian. Repairs to the building itself, the replacement of the air conditioning system, mold remediation.
But they don't make it right.
Repairs, you're doing a good job, South and Central Andros, but it ain't 55 years.
No, I can call your name. I hope they get you right in 2022.
Yeah.
I hope they get South and Central Andros right in 2022.
Cat Island, when you...
I want to see my boy in
I
the
know when you
lineup.
speak to your people,
Now, you know I love your
you
mother.
know this makes
You
sense.
got to be in the lineup in 2022. Now tell me, don't call your name.
Honorable member.
The airport in Marsh Harbor is about to receive, please let me continue so we can all go to lunch, is about to receive over $3 million in remedial works to fix the damage caused by Hurricane Dorian. Repairs to the building itself, the replacement of the air conditioning system, mold remediation, and runway light repairs are all underway to bring this airport back to its pre-Dorian state. The new airport in Grand Harbor Key, the Berry Islands, is under construction, coming out of the ground to accommodate the growing traffic into that island. Especially the plans for the Exuma Airport have been finalized, and they have now gone out to bid. All bids should be received by the end of April, with a contractor hoping to be selected shortly thereafter. Construction should commence on that airport in the third quarter of this year. Plans are afoot, don't get vexed now, to build a temporary structure at the North Eleuthera Airport to bring some relief to that overcrowded airport, while plans are finalized for the complete redevelopment of that airport. And of course, we must not forget the planned new airport at Deadman's Key. Plans are being finalized for that airport to go out to bid shortly. Over 200 million, you know what the problem is. Over $200 million of works is required in our Family Island airports. Public-private partnerships, oh Lord, here we go with Angleston again, similar to the setup at LPIA, are being explored to secure the necessary funding to allow for these redevelopments to happen in the shortest possible time, since, with the enormous demands on the public purse by the areas of the Bahamas affected by Hurricane Dorian, there will not be sufficient funds from the taxpayer or government borrowings to carry this load.
The chair recognizes honorable member for Mangrove Key,
Speaker,
South and Central Andros.
the member for Freetown has made grand announcement about airport and expansions and development in all of the other islands. This member knows that the airport in Andros Town, Fresh Creek to be exact, is the 7th or the 8th busiest airport in this country.
You got a new hotel.
He's made some promises to us, and also a brand new hotel coming on at the cost of over $10 million in South Andros. We depend on this member to have the opening of the Isaac I.D. Davis Airport at Congo Town. My people are sorely disappointed, Mr. Speaker, that this honorable member has made no mention of the construction of 2 airports in my district. Central Andros, to be exact, Fresh Creek, and in Congo Town. I'm highly disappointed in this member. We would have had private discussion. I wait for some annex to this presentation to hear about the airports, especially in Central Andros and Congo Town. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member.
South and Central Andros for so well representing his area, but we are doing this strictly by where economic impact is most felt. Abaco number 1, Exuma number 2, North Eleuthera number 3. And then obviously it has been so long neglected for so long that we're adding Deadman's Key to that pile, because they have waited how many years, Long Island? 60 years, 70 years. So this is your time. Your people down there need this airport. The firefighters, the firefighters at the Lyndon Pilling International Airport should be relieved to know that a contract for the construction of a new firehouse has finally been signed, and that construction should be completed this year. It is also the intention of the government to bring about the single largest investment in firefighting resources at our airports ever through the acquisition of 11 new fire trucks to replace our aging fleet. Contract negotiations are near conclusion for the acquisition of new state-of-the-art passenger and baggage screening equipment for the Lyndon Pindling International Airport at a cost of $12 million to bring that airport into line with ever-evolving international standards and to assure that we remain compliant with standards required by the Americans to operate the pre-clearance facility. Bahamas Air has now completed all the necessary technological upgrades to their navigational infrastructure to allow for their older Boeing 737s to fly into the United States. Bahamas Air, however, suffered financially from the effects of Hurricane Dorian. The free flights it was mandated to provide during the evacuation, the loss of business from its lucrative Abaco and Grand Bahama routes, and the effects of Hurricane Dorian on travel to and from the Bahamas immediately following the storm have taken a financial toll on the flag carrier. Bahamas Air will therefore have to look at other revenue sources to mitigate these losses or seek an increase in its subsidy, or both. But more details on that will follow in the June debate. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it has been widely reported, sad she gone, that in the last audit of our aviation sector by the International Civil Aviation Organization, which took place 5 short months after we took office, Eggleston, we scored an abysmal 32 out of 100. Significant deficiencies were noted. The Bahamas Civil Aviation Authority has hired the Aircraft Registry Group out of Miami, Florida, to assist in the further revamping of our aviation legislation and effective rollout of their new regime to ensure that scores significantly improve at our next audit in the second quarter of 2021. Mr. Speaker, I conclude by saying that our tourism industry is strong and getting stronger every day. Investments in our tourism sector continue to flow in, and coupling that with our rebounding arrival numbers, I expect employment and entrepreneurial opportunities in this sector to continue to empower more and more of my fellow Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to report that the 7 million tourist man has this portfolio on lock. So said, so done. Mr. Speaker, Freetown supports this budget.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many? Just a moment.
I move to lay on the House the appendices to the port agreement that were inadvertently left off when it was originally laid. So I'm going to, if I could, just lay this document that are the appendices that weren't. Now, if the everything is all signed and sealed. If they need another copy, I can give them another copy. But it was laid. It was laid. It was laid. It was laid. So
I ordered that document be brought up.
I signed it, right? Huh? That's just the appendices here. But I can give you a better copy if you need a better copy.
Order that the document do lie on the table. Honourable Member for Freetown, are you completed now? As many? The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Yamakro. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the House suspends until 3 p.m. for the luncheon break.
Is there a seconder? Honourable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.